Hey there.
Hey, Trevor. Hey, Jacob.
How's it going?
Hey, how's it
Good. How
going?
y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
Trevor, first, thanks for taking care of the roster.
Yeah, sure thing.
I appreciate that. And Jacob, please tell me if David Lenz is doing well.
He actually doesn't work at Studio Intrigue anymore.
Oh my, what happened? He was president of your AIA chapter. What did he do? Did he open his own office?
He ended up getting an offer from Bergman, which is in Lansing as well.
Yeah.
And,
Is that where Nathan Hebekaiser
I'm not
works?
sure. I don't actually know that name, so it
Because I think Nathan was with you all perhaps before you were there.
that could be. That could be. Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know if you remember Kyle McMillan though.
Yeah, Kyle. He was on my He was on my list as well.
Yeah.
So Nathan was in my studio, and then Kyle was in my portfolio studio. Probably the very last. I think it's called Practice Portfolio, which you'll have. You're a 3+ student right now.
Yes.
So you'll have that.
Wait, what? Sorry, I'm in the master's program.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But you're taking this class.
Yep.
Because you probably have an undergraduate degree from another university.
Yes, I do. Yep.
Yeah, so that's why this is kind of like, prove it or lose it kind of studio for you. Not that I'm gonna, stop you from moving up or moving through our program. It's just that I think there's 4 of you I think that are probably like that, and so you'll have critical practice I think this summer.
Yep.
Good luck on that. And you'll have the ADS sequence 1 and 2, and then practice portfolio, which kind of wraps up the whole experience.
Right.
And you do your own website. And so I had Kyle and a couple of other Lansing people as well, probably 3 years ago. So tell him I said hi.
Yeah, I will for sure.
That's awesome. And we have Stephen. How are you? Or is it Stefan?
It doesn't. It's okay. Either one is good.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's he's too polite.
Yeah. Well. So, Stephen, where are you living? Where are you right now?
I'm in Windsor right now.
You're in Windsor. So, did you take your undergraduate program in Windsor, like at St. Clair, or?
No, I transferred in from George Brown from Toronto. So I did ID 3, 4, and I'm doing 5 in comp right now in Lawrence Tech.
I see. So did you earn a diploma there then?
So I have an advanced diploma in architectural technology.
Yeah.
And so I transferred in and then finishing up the bachelor's right now.
So yeah, you're finishing up. So you're in the undergraduate section. All right.
Yes.
Super. All right. And I recognize Cody there. I could recognize Cody from just his silhouette. How are you, Cody?
I'm well.
Excellent. Nathaniel, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Super sparkly. Where are you from?
I'm Indianapolis.
Ah, super.
Huh?
So there's not many firms there, maybe 20, 10?
Yeah, just a couple.
Are you working for one?
Yeah, no, I'm downtown in Indianapolis. Firm called Synthesis Incorporated.
So I'm just doing some connecting here.
Oh, fine.
Oh crap, what was his name? Amy was her name. There's a husband and wife who were doing excellent work at UDM when I had them as students, and they're both living in Indianapolis. And right now I can't remember his last name, and certainly her married name, which is his. Benjamin is his name. And they don't work together. He was not one of my students. She was, which is why I can't remember his last name. Bugger. It'll come to me. You're going to see one of her drawings
Oh, sure.
at some point this semester. Welcome. Richard, how are you? Are you there, Richard? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
super. Yep. Hey, Nora, how are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Where are you from?
El Paso, Texas.
Excellent. Been there. Awesome. Roger, how are you? Oh, you don't have your camera on yet.
It's not.
Nope. But I
Can
can
you hear
hear
me
you. I can hear you.
Okay. Let me see how this works.
Don't ask me. I'm just, there we
Okay,
go.
yeah, got it.
Yeah, you're in the daylight now. Well,
Yeah.
where are you? Are you on campus?
I'm in Ann Arbor, actually.
Yeah, excellent. Brilliant. I hope we can all fit you guys into this classroom. Casey, how are you doing? Where are you from? Where are you from? Can you hear me okay, Casey? Well, he's having some technical problems.
I wonder if he's trying to tell us something with those
Yeah,
posts. in the
yeah,
back.
he looks with all due respect, like my puppy when he's saying I need to go outside.
I think maybe his mic is not working.
Oh, there you go.
No, he's not seeing it. Dasmeen, can you hear me okay?
Desmond, yeah,
Good, thank you. Good to meet you. Say hi to everyone for me.
I will.
You don't even want to know what year I worked at the firm you're working at now.
I think they said like 77. You said that, right?
Yeah, 77. So that's 40 years ago. Desmond, you're not going to be able to audit this class from your phone.
Well, my laptop's microphone doesn't work, so yeah.
Are you burning data to do this?
It's okay. I don't worry about paying for data.
So you're going to be here for a while.
I'm good with that.
All right. Okay, good. So we've got half the class. I don't know if I should try to re-invite people. Nathaniel is not. No, Nathaniel's here.
I'm here.
Yes, sir.
I talked.
Go ahead.
He's on his way.
Who is?
Alec.
Yep. Okay, good. Alex Seaman. And then Caitlin is missing. Jesus is missing. Let me send another invite to. Cheers. Andrew, is Andrew here?
Yes, it's me right here.
Yeah, good. Okay. Hey, Andrew, how are you? Where are you from?
Okay, thank you. Connecticut.
Whereabouts?
In Shelton, Fairfield County.
Fairfield, so north?
Southwest.
Southwest, like
By
Greenwich or
Bridgeport.
Darien? Oh, Bridgeport? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a sister-in-law in Greenwich.
Oh, okay. It's about half an hour away.
Yeah, pretty country. Brilliant. Where did you go to school?
For college or for high school?
Yes, undergrad.
Oh, undergrad at LTU.
Oh, so what are you doing in Connecticut? You snag a job there?
I'm working full time here. So.
Who do you work for?
Myself.
Oh, great. Good for you.
Thanks.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Did we get Caitlin yet? Hi, Caitlin. How are you? Where are you from?
Good. Brownstown.
Oh, sure. Have you met the twins from Brownstown Township that were in architecture about 4 years ago?
No, I don't think so.
Anthony and Timothy Clement?
No.
They were excellent students. So do we have John? Is John Lucent or Lucente here? So, and Hung is not here yet. Right? I don't see him. Someone just joined. Okay, thanks, Casey. So maybe you can work on that, Casey, when you can. Can you tell me where you're living, Casey? Type it in or mouth it really clearly, the way my beagles can. I have to pee. No, I think I maybe heard you there. Did it pick it up? See, I told you I had beagles. Okay, so what I'd like to suggest is that for all of you to turn your mics off, and you'll have to get acclimated to the process of toggling between talking and listening as we get sort of into the studio. So I think we're missing John and Jesus. And if any of you know John Lucente and Jesus Guzman, as well as Hung Nguyen, and Alec is on his way. If you can text them or email them, this is actually being live streamed so they can join and audit the class from that, but they've all been invited. So let's get started, right? What I'd like to suggest is that this, in many ways, is an experiment. It has been an experiment for the last 10 years, this online learning format that we're in. But it's also an experiment to the extent that we've never had this many students in a Hangout up to today. So I'm very interested to see how this works technically. And I think sort of educationally. My name is Mark Farlow. And like you, I went through the Lawrence Tech program. Unlike you, as Desmond will tell you, as maybe Cody and Trevor know from deeper conversations, longer conversations that I've had the privilege of having with them, is that I went to Lawrence Tech in the BC era, right, before computers. So my experience with Lawrence Tech is a long one, and it's a fond one, and it's one that has been fascinating, really, over the last 40 years plus. I started at Lawrence Tech in 1975 and was in school with a great group of people, one of which I worked with for over 22 years after I graduated from, after I graduated from Cincinnati, but after I left a teaching position at Mississippi State University. So to tell you a little bit about my trajectory, Lawrence Tech, in a way, and the faculty therein really kind of ignited my interest in learning about architecture by teaching it, which is a rather peculiar way to get smarter, but it seemed to be the way that it worked best for me. But I've always loved practicing architecture, and Desmond works for a firm that I actually had the opportunity and the pleasure of working with in the mid-70s when I was like in my second year of architecture school. I paid for my own education. That's why it took me a little bit longer. And that's actually why I kind of crafted my own work study program, my own co-op program. UDM has such a beast. Cincinnati has one as well. Cincinnati's is a little bit older, but the kids in a more institutional format work and study between one semester and the next. I didn't know about those programs when I created this. I just had this harebrained idea that if I was going to pay for school, I'd better have a job. And if I was going to have a job, I'd probably try to better get a job in the profession to make sure that the profession was right for me. And so I did that for 3 years while I was as an undergraduate. I worked for about 2 years at YE Associates. I worked for 1 year at Gunnar Burkert's Associates. That's both of those cats are dead, but their legacies still remain and live on in many buildings and in many sort of architects and planners and landscape architects and interior designers from those firms. And so I had this opportunity to work and practice rather, work and study while I was going to undergraduate school, but I had a professor at Lawrence Tech that really, really excited me. He has now retired from Miami University of Ohio, and he got me very interested in history and theory of architecture and architecture as a cultural history. And it was from his sort of impetus and his prodding, much like I will be prodding you this semester. I had another harebrained idea that I could be a professor of architecture at the paltry age of like 25. So I went to graduate school at Cincinnati, which was a 2-year program, not unlike the graduate program that you're in now or that you undergraduates are embarking on soon. And I taught while I was practicing, again, working while I was going to school. It's a rugged life and it's a rugged profession, but it worked for me. And I hope it works for you. And then I got another teaching gig at Mississippi State University where in my first year teaching there, I went to a party down in New Orleans with my class and I met Martin Schwartz, and I had the good sense, another harebrained idea, to invite him to come up to Michigan. And for Martin and me, the rest is history. I was his best man. He was my best man, and we are old, dear friends. But like those of you that live in Ann Arbor, I hardly ever see him because I live in Royal Oak. But Martin has been an advocate for me at Lawrence Tech, and I have been an advocate for him and his research. And I think our friendship has endured since we met in January, really, of 1984. We both participated in a faculty exchange program. He first went to Plymouth Polytechnic, which is now the University of Plymouth, to teach there for 2 semesters. And I flew over when he returned to Mississippi State for 1 semester plus a summer gig. So we both lived in the same house, but never at the same time. While living in Plymouth, and that was really a grand opportunity for me. Since then, I've taught a number of times as an adjunct because I returned to the States committed to practicing, committed to learning the craft by actually practicing the craft rather than just learning about it by lecturing or writing or thinking or observing and teaching. And I joined a local firm that has since ended, and then joined Victor Soroki in 1992, probably before most of you were born. And I worked there for over 20 years, 22 years to be exact, and became a principal in 2000. And to speed things along, because I know you're falling asleep already, Rainey Hamilton and Kent Anderson contacted me to ask for some assistance in finding a design director, and I honestly thought that they were asking for names in my Rolodex, in my contact list. So I kind of played along in that regard, and I discovered that they were trying to actually get me to join their firm. So as soon as I figured that out, I considered their offer, and gosh, it was April of 2014, nearly 4 years ago, that I joined Hamilton Anderson, HAA, in Detroit, where we're doing some really, really exciting work. And there's more sort of coming to the office as we speak. There's many planes, if you will, projects starting to land on the tarmac. So I've been there nearly 4 years, and teaching both at U of D or UDM, and at Lawrence Tech, really in earnest since 1995. So I've been teaching at Lawrence Tech since 95, when then Carl Greimel, the dean, then invited me to teach this very class, but in the analog format in 1995. I gave a lecture on architecture since 1966, a class I had given at UDM in 1999 and in 01. But I gave that class in 2005 at Lawrence Tech, still many, many years ago. And then in 2009, Will Wittig, the dean at UDM, invited me to teach in the graduate program there. And I did that for 1 year and skipped a year, and then returned a year later. And in the year that I skipped, Martin called me and said, "Would you like to teach in our graduate program?" And I said, "Well, I think I can do that." And he said, "Well," and I said, What are you talking about? What's going on?" And he said, "Well, it's kind of unusual." I said, "What is it? Do you want me to like co-teach with Philip of Plowright, or, you know, what are you saying here?" And he said, "No, it's kind of like, well," he said, "do you know about our online program?" And I go, "Well, not really." And he said, "Well, I've got this commitment that we're going to try and take our online master's degree and launch it to a completely integrated and fully online curriculum." And I'm nodding, and he said, "And we'd like you to teach the thesis studio," which has since been changed to become the Advanced Design Studio 1 and then 2. And I said, "What do you mean you want me to teach an online studio? What in the world does that mean?" And he explained that, you know, with 2 cans and a string, we can like talk to people, you know, in Ann Arbor and Indianapolis and Fairfield County, Connecticut, or wherever, right? If the strings are really taut. And honestly, folks, that was about the level of the technology in 2010 when I did this. And it was not popularly received. Many of the old grade guys like me were apoplectic about what I was proposing to do. When I talked to many of my sort of older colleagues, they were aghast at the preposterous nature of the idea of, you know, a studio being taught online. And I have to imagine that you, sitting in the comfort of your home or wherever you're sitting right now, you're probably saying, you know, what? How is this going to work? I can't even imagine how desk crits work, how field trips work, how lectures work, how pinup reviews work. I can't imagine how I'm going to learn everything sitting in my own home or in my own office, where Mark is in Royal Oak, Michigan, and I'm in, you know, wherever, Lansing, right? But ladies and gentlemen, this actually works, and it works incredibly well. The university had nominated me for a Teaching and Learning Using Technology Award in 2013, and the provost and the president gave me that award. And I'm the only adjunct faculty that's ever won that award. And the award was based on this class, based on this experiment, this online learning experiment that we were three years into when I started it. And I was still perfecting it then. And we were getting such incredibly positive feedback about this online learning format that the enrollment was starting to rise. And kids locally were signing up for these online studios with me over boots on the ground professors and the studios that they were teaching. And Glenn Leroy was starting to freak out about the popularity of this. And then, you know, Carl came in or Amy before him came in and said, "What is the deal with these classes, Mark?" I said, I don't really know. I'm not doing anything different in these online studios with you guys than I do with like the classes and studios that I've taught at UDM or that I've taught previously, you know, at Lawrence Tech or Mississippi State or the University of Plymouth or the University of Cincinnati, on and on and on. I'm still the same dude. I'm still like enthusiastic about the same things and committed to sharing those things with all of you. And so either they'd never had any sort of, you know, overly caffeinated professor like me teach at Lawrence Tech, which I doubt, or the possibility of being excited about connecting with kids from all over the globe never really dawned on them, and they never thought that it would like crackle with excitement the way that the studio has been like doing. Just to give you sort of an example, I've had students quite literally from all over the globe. I had a student that was working for Progressive AE in Grand Rapids. And after the first benchmark in September, October, he drove his family, 2 kids, 2 girls, and his wife to Oregon, to Portland, and started working for a firm there. And now he's the director of IT and BIM, the BIM manager for Harley Ellis Devereaux in their Los Angeles office. And so I connected with him every night from Portland. I've had a kid from Anchorage, Alaska, who had to join our studios at 2:30 in the afternoon his time, because of course they're 4 hours behind. I had another kid who was in Hong Kong, originally from Toronto. And when the sun was setting behind me, you know, for the studios that we're running now, the sun was rising for him in Hong Kong, some 13 hours ahead of our time. I mean, I just like that cracks me up. Here's the other thing. While I've not met all of you, I am committed to shaking your hand if I haven't met you already. So I've had 192 students in the online format, and I've met all but 15. And 3 of them are in Lansing. So gosh darn it, you know, I got to get over to Lansing and buy everybody a coffee so that I can meet them. So I'm committed to meeting all of you in our own way. I actually met the kid from Portland because he was interviewing here in Detroit for Harley Ellis, and we had coffee at the Starbucks across the street from the campus. So I go out of my way to make sure that I meet you all. I can do that by traveling to your cities. I can do that by you coming to this vicinity and meeting you. We can do that on a field trip if that's the class's pleasure. I've often spoken at the graduation brunches. So if you walk after you graduate, there's a good chance you'll see me there. Or we'll just see each other at AIA functions. We'll see each other as practitioners. And I would very much like to add your names to the list of people that I have met. And I have a feeling that you'll want to do the same with all of your classmates. So what does all of this mean? It means that while I've been teaching for, what is the number? 30, since 82. So since 82, since I've been teaching that long, there's a good chance that I feel like I know what I'm doing. There's a good chance that I've graded students before. There's a good chance that I've given a lecture before. There's a good chance that I've met people like you, or worked with people like you, or been mentored by people like you. So my degree of familiarity in this teaching environment, and particularly in this online protocol, is one where I'm very, very comfortable. And my goal is to get you more comfortable with it if you've never experienced a live, synchronous, real-time studio like this. And just to give you some perspective, if you ask me about discussion boards or like a regular online class, my eyes start to flicker and roll back in my head, because I don't know anything about like a typical online sort of correspondence class. So that's kind of the irony of all of this. I have no idea what the other online classes operate like, but this is the real deal. This is an online studio that works very hard to create a culture where we're operating through the Ethernet. It creates that culture by teaming. It creates that culture by representing a virtual studio with the same precepts that we use in a traditional studio, that is lectures and pinup reviews and final reviews, milestone reviews that I call benchmarks, and so on and so forth. So if you've had an online class before, I assure you, you've never had one like mine. If you're incredibly skeptical, as I was in 2010 about an online studio, I assure you, I kind of went into it kicking and screaming, and became a convert, honestly, in the first week, because I saw this immense potential for us to connect in authentic ways virtually through the exchange of ideas, which I think we would call discourse. And I saw the potential and leveraged it and seized it by bringing in friends from all over the world to participate in our online experiment, by having them act as critics in benchmark reviews, by having them talk to my students. And I have been teaching now at the graduate level and since 2009, every semester, every summer. And I've been teaching at Lawrence Tech's every semester, every summer since 2010. And just in the fall of 2016, the provost and the president called me again and said that, yep, Mark, we're hearing all sorts of groovy things about you, so we're going to confer on you the Horlt Teaching and Excellence Award, and then the Friends of the University, the alumni, conferred on me the Distinguished Architectural Alumni Award. I'm their 20th winner, and you know, all three of those awards are incredibly important honors for an adjunct professor, someone who teaches not because it's a job. They teach because they love doing this and they love sharing, and they do it because they believe in you. They believe in the next generation, and they believe in their ability to connect with that generation and share with them as much as they possibly can in order to prepare them for the rigors of our profession. that probably deserves a tug of a beer, but I'll settle with this water. I think the other thing that's interesting is that in the fall of 2017, Professor Geyer contacted me and asked me if I'd be interested to teach the Comprehensive Design Studio. And so I was just as skeptical about that. I had grooved, right, this online graduate level thing with 6, 7, 8 students, a really like lovely sweet spot of a roster. I spent an hour at Desk Crits each week with my students, maybe 50 minutes. I lectured for 45 to 55 minutes every week. And we had these really, really sort of dialogical conversations. They were really, really special. But as they moved me into the undergraduate and graduate realm and into the Comprehensive Design Studio realm, they've given me more and more students, and I've had to sort of learn a new sort of talk, new walk, and I love the change, and I love that, you know, I'm still young enough to do it, but I'm also you know, convinced that change is the inevitable sort of denominator of whatever it is that we do in academia. And I think academia is kind of a microcosm of what we might do in the profession. So the first lesson for you today is accept change, embrace change, make change. Any questions about that sort of quick autobiography? So I know some of you. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you, and there will be moments and intervals and occasions along the way where that will happen. And I will seize those moments between now and the day that I'm no longer able to get out and visit in the near future. That I pledge. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second and welcome you again if you just pulled in. Hung, I know that you've just arrived, so I wanted to welcome you and put you on the spotlight. Where are you sitting right now, Hung? What city? Yeah, thank you.
Farmington Hill.
Farmington Hills, excellent, thank you. Are you working in an office right now?
No.
Okay, good, thanks. Can you go ahead and mute? All of you should mute unless because we just get sort of feedback. And I think we have everyone else here. So the more interesting and maybe tense correct autobiography is this document, which you will find on Blackboard, and you will find on in a folder that oh, I'm struggling to remember. Richard, did you create the folder for us? I think you did. So Richard created a folder for all of us it's a shared folder on Google Drive, and I have uploaded that document to it among many others. And I want to make sure that by virtue of a raise of the hand, that you have all been shared the Google Drive folder that Richard sent. I have it. Can I see you waving your hands? Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. That's why we need to mute. Okay. So Richard created that folder for all of you to file dump into, and I have already started that. So you can learn a little bit more about me and the exact chronology by looking at that. As I said in my email to you, through Blackboard, if you have trouble sleeping at night, I have the perfect remedy. If you watch my hour and 10-minute long lecture from 2016, you will learn a lot about me. You will learn a little bit more about the College of Architecture from that BC era, and you will appreciate maybe a lot about Brush Park, the historic neighborhood that you will be working in this semester. So, and I think I shared that link through YouTube. So you're invited to look at that. The studio brief is something, it's a one-page thing. It is the snapshot of our class, the name of the class, the course numbers, the prerequisites, the faculty, how to get a hold of us, a little bit about me, when we meet, what times we meet, what this studio is about, what its content is, the objectives of it, and the assignments. That's pretty straightforward. The most important thing to sort of peel back a little bit more carefully, because I know some of you are still a little flummoxed about this. We will meet on Tuesday and Thursday evenings from a set time. We will meet at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesdays, when we will normally have lectures, and we will run till around 9 o'clock, at which time Dan Farrow comes in. He's our lab professor, and he will run his lab with you until he's done, which will be sometime later in the evening. These are long days for you. They're long days for me, and I definitely appreciate that. But conversely, this class is a 6-credit class, and in terms of grade points, this is a ball buster. This class is 6 credit hours, and a poor mark in this class will kill you, and a high mark in this class will help you a great deal. Not that grade points are the things that you should be striving for necessarily, but I know, and I was cognizant of them myself, that grade points are important, and many of you rely on scholarships that are a function of your grade point. My goal is not to give you high grades or low grades or failing grades, but in my years of experience, I've given high grades and I've given failing grades. And I think the hard grades are the ones that are in some ways the easiest to give and the most painful to give. But I have the capacity to do that. And it's definitely something that you will know you're getting before it happens, because I am in constant contact with you throughout this semester. If we go to the syllabus, which I hope you have, I don't mean to freak you all out, so I apologize for that. But if we go to the syllabus for the semester, which is a multi-page document, nearly a dozen pages, I'm happy to go through that point by point if you want, but I want you to know that the class meets in this format online and in real time, interactively, which is also called synchronously. The start times are 5:30 and then 9 o'clock for the lab. And we will have our final review on Tuesday evening at 5:30, April 24th. And one half of the class, in other words, 4 projects, will be shown and reviewed that night. And we will have 4 reviews on the other studio night, which is Thursday evening, April 26th. Now, I'm going to say this a million times because a million times you will ask me, how does this work? The reviews are held on campus. The reviews are held just this way, as a virtual Google Hangout review. I drive to the campus and I set up the computer in the grad suite or in the room that they assign me, and we conduct the reviews there. Most of our reviewers, our guest critics, our critters, as I call them, drive to the campus to be with you, to meet with you, to talk to you and give them your cards. Some of those critics will be online because they're in El Paso, Texas, for example. Here's the thing. If you're in Brownstown Township or Ann Arbor or Lansing or Farmington Hills or Southfield, I strenuously, even Windsor, I strenuously encourage you to be at the review for the final review, Benchmark 3, in April on both nights, the quality of that experience is much higher than the experience if you run your review online. That's not to say that it's better in a pure sense. It's just that it's more physical, it's more celebratory, and it is more traditional in that regard. And in many cases, the in-person experience helps us meet if we haven't met at any other moment along the way. So this is one of those things that I'd like you to save the date for now, so that you plan on being on campus one or both of those evenings, so that you can meet everyone else, and certainly so that I can meet you. Are there any questions about that? Let me just summarize. The online studio operates online, pure and simple, right? I cannot require you to be on campus at any moment along the way, and I do not require you to be on campus. But if you can be on campus, you ought to consider it for the benchmark review, for the Benchmark 3 review. It will go a long way, and I want that review to be the best experience that you can possibly have as a student. Now, a lot of you who are like local are saying, what's the big deal, right? I mean, I'm just going to show up. But for people in Connecticut or El Paso, Texas, it's a much harder accomplishment. So I definitely do not require you to be here. But if your travel plans for business could align with, travel plans to be in Detroit for review, I would encourage you to work towards that. But I do not require it. So that's kind of the wedding, right? That's the wedding and the wedding date, right? That's looking all the way at the end of the semester, which I assure you is going to fly. You are not going to believe how fast this semester will go. Recommended texts. I always feel kind of like I shouldn't require you to buy textbooks. My colleagues don't necessarily agree with that. And I'm open to that opinion. I have 10,000 books, right? So obviously I like books. I like buying books. John Ruskin once said any book worth touching is a book worth owning. And I think I probably took that too literally. And I've read most of them. But I'm here to tell you, as I told you the other day in the email, I definitely recommend Once in a Great City, A Detroit Story. It is amazing. And if you're interested in the city of Detroit, if you're interested in its history, and if you're interested in Brush Park, at least read it for the Brush Park chapter. You will love this book. David Moranis is an author from Detroit. He's written the biography on William Clinton, President Clinton, among many others. He's written on the Olympics in the 1960s. And he writes about the zenith, Detroit's zenith, which was 1962 to 1964, before, during, and after President Kennedy, the late President Kennedy, was assassinated. He contends, and I think he paints this amazing, compelling picture of Detroit as a city that reaches its peak as a municipality, as a cultural sort of polymath that is worth documenting in an easy to read, incredibly well researched book that I would encourage you to buy a hard copy of, but I know that you can acquire from Amazon a used paperback for probably $5. My wife just gave me the book by Thomas Segru after she heard Mr. Segru on WDET talking with Stephen Henderson a couple of weeks ago, The Origins of the Urban Crisis. I'm actually not reading it just yet, but I will during this semester. I got this copy for $7. It's a doctoral dissertation, and it is an excellent book as well from the things that I've read in it so far. Incredibly well researched, lots of maps, lots of backup material that as your careers in Detroit mature And if you decide to stay in Detroit, or if you're from another city and Detroit intrigues you so much that you want to be here, I am encouraging you to acquire both of those books. But for this semester, I only recommend them. Another terrific book, Unassisted Living, Ageist Homes for Later Life, is kind of central to the themes of living in place and baby boomers like yours truly. Professor Farrow requires you to buy a couple of impressive books with equivalently impressive prices. Perhaps you can find used copies less than what this syllabus forecasts. But I definitely encourage you to heed his advice on that. Let's keep going. I'm on page 4, I think. We'll go back and I'll answer any questions. If we go to page 4 and its mate, page 5 in the syllabus, there are 2 grading scales, ladies and gentlemen. The A, B, C, D, F scale or range is for all of our 4,000 level undergraduates. So in effect, you could get an A or a D, as in David, for example, this semester, depending on the output of your work and the outcomes of it. The range is fairly broad and covers a lot of terrain, right? And that terrain is probably, commensurable to the experiences you've had in other courses, perhaps even other studios at Lawrence Tech, in the sense that, they give a grade between A and F, okay? So likely nothing new for you there. For our graduate students, which are enrolled in the other sort of section, the 4 of you, Nathaniel, Nora, Jacob, and Fajr, it's a very compressed grade scale. You got to either hit it or you don't. So it's either between an A or a C. If you're anything less than a C minus, you actually have failed the class and would have to take it over again. So I want you to be I want to make sure that you look at where you are in this and make sure you understand those grades. And I will grade according to your credential, right? If you're an undergraduate, I give you grades based on that scale. And if you're a graduate student, I give you grades based on that scale. I want to pause because grades are really important to you all. And if you have any questions about those 2 scales or what those grades mean within that scale, this would be a lovely time to start that question. We can start that questioning. Let's see. Let me. So I want to give you a chance to ask that question. Hold on while I deal with Alec here. So Alec is. Let me try to re-invite Alec again. Bear with me. Make sure I spell it correctly. So like Alec isn't here yet, but he will be able to watch this conversation that we've had now for 48 minutes on YouTube. All of our conversations are recorded and they're all on my page. And these are public, so that any troller, right, looking in from the internet world could be like eavesdropping. They can't participate in the class, but they could eavesdrop. And so this is out there. So I just want you to appreciate that. So Trevor, I'm not sure. So I don't know that I can invite Alec from his, I'm going to try and invite him from his Gmail account.
Can you
go ahead?
So he's sitting next to me. But for some reason, there's an error message. He's not allowed to join the Hangout. Could that be in the settings or something? He just followed the whole.
Yeah, that I don't know. So I would email. So he's hearing all of this.
He's next to me, but
yeah,
I can unplug and just have us do like a community now.
Yeah, are you in a classroom where our conversations my voice won't bother other students studying?
Nobody on this side of the wall, so I think we're okay.
Okay. I apologize in advance. Can I just get a mug shot of him? Can he lean in?
Yeah, here's come over in.
Hey,
just have a sit.
Good to see you, Alec.
He's waving.
So I'm reading Andrew's remarks here. He's claiming that the same thing happened to him on his Mac. He had to install the plugin, restart Safari, and relaunch under a proper Gmail account. What I'd tell you all,
It works better under Chrome than any other browser.
thank you. I was just about ready to say that, which is how I operate. And I'm on a MacBook, but I operate on Chrome.
Yeah,
because they're kind of like talking the same language.
And I've got the chat open and everything, and I clicked the to join the call, but it keeps giving me the error message. So
maybe reboot your computer. That always works for me.
Yeah,
if you haven't
again.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're able to bird dog off of Trevor's computer. So
Yeah.
for the time being, I think that'll help. I just hope Trevor doesn't smell bad because you're gonna have to sit pretty close to him.
No.
Okay, seriously, do we have any questions about the grading? Because I want to go into it a little bit more deeply. Any questions about the two different sections, graduate, undergraduate, and about the range of the scale, or what it says about what an A is and what a B is, and why a B ain't an A, for example? Are you all good with that? Okay, so we can have this conversation later. If you're shy or you're confused later, you thought you got it tonight, but you're confused later, we can talk about it later. Let's go to the bottom of page 5 in the syllabus for a second. And I want you to look at that table. I want you to see module 1, 2, 3, 4. And I want you to understand that we're beginning module 1 tonight. Module 2 is benchmark 1, which says conceptual design. Module 3 is benchmark 2. It is at or around the midterm. And module 4 is benchmark 3. And that is the final review in April, sorry. And each of those milestones, each of those module/milestones have a grade percentage value against the overall course. So module 1, the research, is 15% of your final grade, right? For the studio, 20%, then 25%, then 30%. So as we get deeper into the semester, the stakes get higher because the expectations are greater. Then there is something called improvement and progress, which is a warm, soft, fuzzy word that kind of just talks about my perspective of your performance as a student in this class over time. Like, did we see your grades go up? And if so, I will recognize that. If they bottomed out as we got deeper into the semester, I will take account of that. If you participate in class, if you come prepared for every desk crit with you and your colleague, if you come with questions, if you take on extra work, whatever, if you do things that are above and beyond the call of duty that distinguish you from what everyone else is doing, I'm going to notice that, right? And I return your investment of time and effort with a grade that is 10% of your overall grade. Do you follow what I'm saying? So if you're hitting it out of the park in all of your benchmarks, right? And you're just like super sparkly to be around. You and your teammate get along lovely, and you're sharing information with everybody, and you're making really good comments for other people in their own studio work. I'm going to go, gosh, you know, she or he deserves every benefit of that 10%. I'm going to return that to you. Okay? And that's discretionary. And that comes to you from my colossal number of years of teaching. It's an incentive grade, and it's a dividend grade. Okay, so I reserve the right to award you for your hard work over time and for your sort of performance during the course of the semester. Okay, so that's kind of an important thing. And all of what I've just said is for both sections, right? Graduate and undergraduate. And it is for the grade I issue for the studio, capital S studio. Now, there is a grade that Professor Farrow gives for the lab. His grade for you is 1/3 of the final grade, capital F, capital G. Okay, so if you like get a C in the lab and get an A in the studio, you do the arithmetic, you won't be getting an A for your final grade. It'll get pulled down because 1/3 of your final grade is the lab. So you have to apply pressure, qualitative pressure, in both the lab and the studio. But the lab is 1/3 of the final grade, and the studio is 2/3 of the final grade. The studio grade is broken into those modules with those percentages, and at the top of page 6, it states exactly what I just said. Okay. Attendance. Never have I had a problem with attendance, ever. Not in all the years at Mississippi State, in all the years at Cincinnati, in all the years in Plymouth, or all the months in Plymouth, and not ever at UDM or at Lawrence Tech until last semester. And last semester kind of rocked my world when it came to attendance. And the attendance rules that are the same tonight for you on this syllabus were the same as they were on the syllabus back in August when this class started last fall. And one of our students suffered tremendously, as our president might say, suffered tremendously from consecutive absences that were not excused. So let me open up the conversation about etiquette and online etiquette as it relates to you and me and everyone else. First of all, if you have not filled in Trevor's directory with your LTU email address and a mobile number, please do that right now. Because there are times when I just simply need to connect with you via your mobile phone number. And likewise, you all have my mobile number, and I want you to feel completely able to connect with me on that number. Okay? So what does that mean? It means that if you're running late, you must contact me. You must email me. You must text me. I have to know, because I take a snapshot of the classroom every night to make sure that y'all are here, right? And if someone's not here, they're going to be marked absence. And if they were not excused in advance for that absence, then that's not going to help. That's going to make the case against you for absenteeism a lot easier for me. And I can't imagine that, I can't imagine that absence is going to be a determinant for a grade in any class, but it is a big deal at Lawrence Tech, and it became a really big deal with me last semester. And I just want to nip this in the bud. Don't be absent. let's take this etiquette a little bit further. You're going to be working in group projects this year. You're going to have a partner. You have to choose them soon, like now. So if you're going to be late, you have to tell your partner too, so that the studio knows that you're running late or that you're sick or you're going to be absent or whatever. We have to know in advance. Okay. So if you're tardy, if you're going to be tardy, pull over from the road and text me and then get back on the road. Don't text me and drive. If you're riding with someone, have them text for you or call me. Even if I can't take the call, I will look at the number and recognize it and assume that you're trying to get a hold of me, and I will try to call you back. Okay, so that's the protocol. You have to be here for the class, and you have to be here for a huge chunk of that time, translate all of it, because if I'm here, you can be here. And you have to let me know if you're running behind. Likewise, if you're going to be absent, I have to know in advance. You can't just show up and say, I was sick on Tuesday, but I'm back tonight and I'm feeling better. I have to know before you're bailing on the class on Tuesday that you're sick. I have to be able to excuse you for that absence, okay? And there's finer grain material and language and requirements and steps that you need to follow in the attendance section of the syllabus. I encourage you to read through that carefully, but I make a big deal out of communicating because I make a big deal out of collaborating. And I got stung really bad by an individual last semester for unexcused absences, and I definitely want to spare you that wrath this semester. The same goes for late work. There is no such thing as late work. You're all submitting on the deadlines of the milestones. You will submit where you are. If your work is incomplete, you will still submit. But your grade will reflect the level of the work that was submitted. But if you are woefully behind in March when we're in Hell Week, and you present it final review, I may pull you aside and say, I need to give you 4 more days, and I'm going to make a deal with you to finish your work over the next 4 days, for example. So if I feel like the work that you're doing or the work that you showed is not up to snuff for the College of Architecture and Design and for me as a professor whose livelihood depends on your capacity, your output, because I'm just an at-will employee. I'm not tenured. I never count on teaching until I'm here talking to you. It's imperative that you consider that offer because I know what needs to be done in order for you to complete the work, and I will alert you to that. So there is no late work. There may be incomplete work, but that work will be completed before final grading, before final grades are done. If you're enrolled in this class, you're going to get a final grade. I've never given an incomplete, and I don't plan on it now because I'm just not around over the summer to tender that incomplete. So if you're committed to doing the work within the parameters of our calendar, this academic calendar, as I am, then we're going to be just fine. Okay, I want to be clear about that. Okay, ARCA lectures. ARCA lectures, ladies and gentlemen, sadly occur on Thursday nights, which is the night that we have our class. And I'm going to be missing a chunk of them, including tomorrow night's or Thursday night's lecture. So honestly, that really pisses me off. But I am resigned to this sort of gig to be here with you on Tuesday and Thursday nights. And what I do is I watch the lecture online on like Saturday morning, and catch up with it then. In many ways, It's better because I can go back and rehear something that I'm sure I missed or misunderstood and play it again because it's all on YouTube. So the lectures are live streamed. So if you're working in the studio and you're not even having a desk crit on Thursday night, and you actually want to work but also want to be in the lecture, you can actually audit the lecture through the university's live stream of it, or you can watch it again later. I encourage you to watch all of the lectures this semester, every semester, but I definitely want to encourage you to heed the lecture of Larry Scarpa, whose work we will be looking at this semester from Los Angeles. Very, very important architect doing some really important work. So that's my 2 cents on the ARCA lectures. And the lecture series for the ARCA lectures are dropped into the syllabus for you. Okay. Blackboard webpage, plagiarism. Gosh, I hope you've seen those remarks all throughout every one of your studios, every one of your classes. Let's go to page 10 and 11 for a second. If we go to page, so additional class notes, number 1, that's pretty technical. We've never had to deal with that. Project requirements. You will get an assignment sheet for each milestone, for each benchmark. You already have module 1. Pardon me. And they are released to you at the start of each project, and they will be as clear as I can possibly make them, and we will review them the night of their distribution. You will also have studio critiques, so you and your business partner here will be together for your critique. So they are scheduled on Sunday morning, and in the form of a Google Drive sort of document, and you and your partner sign up for the time session that's available for both of you, and that's available based on what's left over. And if you cannot be here for that time slot, then you have to change that time slot with a classmate, with a pair of classmates. I do not facilitate that. You have to work that out internally. My life is just too complicated right now to deal with your varying schedules as it relates to your desk critiques. What I would encourage you to do is all of you sit down and come to an agreement about who your partners are and when are the optimal times for you to review, so that you can sign up for sessions that are convenient for all of you. Okay, but those sessions are released every Sunday when we have desk crits. When we have pinup reviews, I set the schedule for the presentations, and every review will happen over 2 evenings. Okay, and then we will have a debriefing on the session after the last review. So let's say we have reviews on Tuesdays and Thursday night, right? We will have a debriefing on Tuesday night the following week. And I will meet with all of you like this as a group. And then I will meet with you individually, that is as a pair, right? And go over your work. Okay, and I'll do that for all 8 team members as we move through that evening. Let's talk a little bit about the tools and process of design as we get into designing, which is a verb. There were lots of times when I would say to students that, you could literally draw this whole project out by hand, and maybe take it through other software to render it, especially if you had a good hand and if you drew well. And that may be true to some extent today, but there's so much discipline integration in the comprehensive design studio that must necessarily happen, that I think I have to tell you that you need to be working on Revit, because you're going to need to be able to integrate in 3D structure with mechanical, with life safety, with the building enclosure. You're going to need to be able to energy model the building at a point very late in the semester. You're going to do an energy analysis of your building. Can't do that if you've hand drawn it. You're going to need to do a Department of Energy ComCheck analysis of your building. Can't do that unless it's drawn in. I suppose you could do it in CAD, but it's more labor intensive, much more labor intensive. Trust me, I know. And so you really ought to be working in Revit. If you're not working in Revit, you'll probably be way behind. So that's kind of how I want to leave that. Can you start your conceptual modeling in Rhino or in SketchUp or even in CAD and taking it into 3D? Yeah, because you can export that right into Revit very, very quickly. But if you don't have Revit now, you should make sure that you obtain it, because I think you're just going to need it. I'm sad about telling you that, but I think that's where the stakes are for comprehensive design. Again, because of integration and because of being able and needing to be able to take the model that you've created for this building, this proposal, and taking it into the sort of post-design assessments vis-a-vis the wall section, building enclosure, structural integration, HVAC integration, sustainability, and energy modeling. I think the Revit model is just what you're going to need. Okay, what you can expect from me. I am like drinking water from a fire hose. Those of you who have met with me will know that. I love doing this. I love being with you guys and learning from you, and maybe in the transaction you learn a little bit from me. But it's more than just sitting here. I will be available to you via email and the phone almost any time of the day, and I will promptly reply to any email that you send me within 2 hours, unless I'm driving, at which point you will probably get some sort of notification that I am driving. But that includes the weekends as well as the evenings. Of course, I do sleep. And so I kind of go offline at 10 and I'm up at 5 every morning because I'm at the office at 7:30. So you should not be surprised if you get an email from me at 5:13 in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, because that's actually when I'm thinking about you and this class, because I've probably just gotten done with it 5 hours earlier. I am able to meet with you on time slots that are not scheduled for this class. So if there is a life event or a professional event that causes you to be delayed in something or miss something as it relates to an excused absence, I can be available to meet with you on the weekends, for example. I kind of like to leave Friday night as date night, which means you can find me at Pasquale's in Royal Oak, having just one adult beverage and 2 pieces of pizza. But I am available for most of the other times of that weekend. But that's not to say that I'm sitting here waiting for you. It is something that you will need to be proactive in scheduling, and I will do what I can to accommodate your need to meet. I will maintain the Blackboard website. That's not the best place for me to communicate with you, but I do upload material to Blackboard, and I do post announcements there. and I think Dan Farrow does as well. So here's my punchline. Go to Blackboard every day. Go to it at the same time every day so that you don't miss anything. That way you get into that pattern, that rhythm, and check your email from Lawrence Tech as often as you're sensing that I do. By the way, I know you all have other email addresses. The college gave them to me. Thank you very much, Alice. But I will only communicate you during the semester through your LTU email address. So that means that you ought to try to make sure that your Google/LTU address is pushed to your phone, so that when you get an email from a classmate or me or Dan Farrow, your pocket vibrates so that you can answer it quickly. Okay. Now look, I know that many of you are working, and you're probably thinking, I can't be doing work emails and work while I'm getting Lawrence Tech emails. And, you know, so I definitely respect that. And likewise, I think you have to respect that of any of your classmates and even perhaps me. I know that if I send you an email and I've asked you to do something, or I've asked you to respond to something, and you don't respond in like 2 hours, my rule, not yours, I understand that. But you do get lunch hour. Maybe you do go to the coffee shop to get a Starbucks. You can say, got it, talk later. And that's all I need to hear from you. That way I know you've gotten the email. That way I know I have your attention, and that way I know you're fixing to like answer the question or respond to the request, or send this to you know, Caitlin, for example, right? So that the communication cycle is fulfilled. That's actually kind of really important protocol for you to become accustomed to. And it's really good, and it's a really important thing for you to learn professionally in practice. Oh, here's something. I will return all of your benchmark review grades to you within 1 week. So you will have your benchmark review on a Tuesday and a Thursday. You will have the grades by Monday. That clear? You'll get your grade sheet back from me on Monday. So that when we're talking on Tuesday night, you know where I stand. You know, more importantly, where you stand, right? So we have something, in a way, meaningful to sort of talk about. Let's talk a little bit about grade sheets too. You all have partners for the work you're doing this semester, for all of the modules, for all of the design work. But you will also have, ladies and gentlemen, one other person this semester, and that will change from one benchmark to the next to grade. In other words, Jacob may be doing a grade sheet for Nora, and Nora may be doing a grade sheet for Jacob in benchmark 2. So Jacob and Nora, for example, have to fill out the grade sheet that you will all get ahead of time for their work during that review. Okay? And the same thing, Trevor will do Stefan, Stefan will do Trevor, Richard will do, you know, Caitlin will do, you know, take care of Richard's, and so on and so forth. So you will get feedback, right, from 3 different colleagues this semester for the 3 benchmarks. Capiche? You all understand that? Right? And you will give critical assessment to the work of 3 different colleagues this semester. Why? Because it's really important that you have a critical voice as architects. This is really, really important for our 4 graduate students, but I'm trying to nurture this quality in each of you as maturing undergraduate students. Okay? There's more. Wait. There's more. You will get a grade sheet from each of the critics. Right? So for each of the 3 benchmarks, benchmark 1, benchmark 2, benchmark 3, every critic that we have come in, every critter that comes in will be given your grade sheet, right? So Cody will have a grade sheet that talks about his project, right? Alec will have one. Hung will have one. Everybody will have their own grade sheet that is going to get marked up not only by yours truly and not only by a classmate, right? But by 1 or 2 critics. And at the end of the semester, there's potentially as many as 4 or 5. What does that mean? It means that you're going to get feedback, right? Think about this, from a lot of people, some who know you pretty well, like your partner, some who are getting to know you, from your faculty member who probably knows you better than anyone as the semester evolves, and you will get it from a critic who may not know you at all and may not know what we're doing at all. And I love that. I love that you're going to have this range of feedback because it's going to help you sharpen how you tee up, how you frame your message, right? And how you deliver it and what you say and what you decide not to say as it relates to your verbal narrative, as it relates to your graphical package, right? It's going to all help you be better. And that's why this class is so like resonating, right? For so many people. So it's going to be overwhelming. Oh, and I assure you that the grades will be all over the freaking place, right? Like the critics may be very generous and kind, right? I was there once, and I'm not a critic by trade. I'm not a faculty member by trade. So I think, you know, gosh, I'm looking at Caitlin. I think maybe Andrew probably gets an A because he's got nice hair. So I'm going to give him an A, right? And he's from Connecticut. How much could he possibly be learning that effectively, right? Sitting there when Mark's here. So there might be like consideration that's sort of ephemeral like that. And then some critics are just crabby, right? They're just crabby. And they kind of just like give bad grades. And that's kind of really cool because you're going to get that range. You need to understand that the world is filled with people like on a planning board or a zoning board of appeals, right? You're going to have that range of people that sit there like this and, you know, kind of dismiss you before you even open your mouth. You're going to have people that accept you because you have nice hair, right? Like Alec or like Andrew, right? And you're going to have people that are confused and not sure how to grade you. So I want to confuse you in that way. I want to give you that feedback so that you come to terms with how you're doing as a communicator. Because I think this is a really important skill for you to learn. But here's the punchline for the grades. I want to talk about 2 things. I want to talk about my grades, and I want to talk about the final grade. My grades are assessments of you based on what I'm learning in this class, in our conversations, relative to the work. And because you're paired with people, I'm grading less on the individual, their hair, their necktie, right? And more on the deliverable. So because we're looking at pairs of people working together, I'm looking more closely at the work and not on the personality. I'm being more objective. And my grade is an assessment based on that, not based upon any of the other grades that I'm seeing come to me from these other entities. I do not average the grades of our friends to compute for you, my grade for you. I don't even honestly look at them. I look at them, but I don't value them. I value them in the sense that I appreciate them, but I don't add their values, right? Their grades to compute your grade. Okay? My grades are from my heart, from my experience, and from my experience, right? My opinion. Now, the final grade is kind of the easiest grade in the book to give because it's just numbers, right? I'm adding up all the numbers. It comes to a final number. My number is 2/3 of the final grade. It conflates with Dan's number, which is 1/3 of the final grade. We look at the number and it falls within the A through F, A through D, and A through C range, and it spits it out. My grade will have, my final grade for you will have the 10% modifier incentive grade. But at the end of it all, it is fairly numerical. Okay. On those grade sheets, on the first benchmark, I open the floodgates and share an awful lot with you in writing. I give not only marks of where your grade is, I write about you, about where you are, where you missed things, where you should be at, and where you need to go. And I give you advice, and I articulate concerns. I type my remarks, and they are characteristically prodigious on benchmark 1, and they are fairly light and kind of like add a girl, add a boy on benchmark 3. Okay, so I go from most to least as we move through the class. Okay, but you will get grading marks that are based on a rubric or a matrix, and you will get written advice from me in the form of something typed on your grade sheet. So that's what that is also what it means when it says, and will include individualized comments and suggestions with each grade sheet, except for the final benchmark. I don't, like if you're walking on the ledge and you're freaking out, I don't share that in emails. Like if you're sharing something with me that is grave or concerning or health related, I don't share that with the class. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, if you brought something to my attention that you've shared just with me, and I think that the class benefits from your research or your find, I'm going to ask you to share it with the class. I'm not going to share it. So I put the burden on you. I will not post any of your assignments for viewing by the class without requesting your approval in advance. So I won't show Nora's work to John, but I might ask Nora to upload her work or screen share her work for John if John has a question, right? Because that's not really my prerogative, because the work is baking, right? It's in process. However, I will share your work next year, if God willing, right? Knock on wood, if they have me back again. And you will see evidence of that. I will show work from former students as a way of giving you an ability to see where the work comes from. And similarly, I've uploaded work to Google Drive in a folder for you called Student Work that gives you snapshots of work by some students from Lawrence Tech from this class that is somewhat old and somewhat recent, that gives you a sense of where your work needs to be, right? I will do my best to communicate with you clearly and fairly, and I will also do my darndest to make sure that I deal and accept your own sort of special or unique learning skills. I mean, maybe, folks, this is the benefit of having someone who has been teaching for so long and honestly loves what they're doing. I've been around the block. My favorite story as it relates to this point is that when I was teaching at the University of Cincinnati, one of my favorite experiences was one that overwhelmed me from the very beginning. I had a student named Mitch, who I still stay in touch with today. He's an accomplished architect in Washington, D.C. He just had one little sort of like issue. He was profoundly deaf. And so I had a signer that worked with Mitch and me. And so our critiques were on onion skin that would go for yards and yards and yards long. A 45-minute desk crit with Mitch would take half a roll of onion skin, and the signer would just be completely spent after she was accounting for the things that we were saying together, because it was very fast conversation. I loved that experience. I morphed my teaching and speaking abilities in such a way that I got through to Mitch. We worked very hard to be on the same page. And that I think was the most profound, I don't want to say disability, because I don't look at that as a disability. My goodness, I'm going deaf. But I definitely think that for Mitch, the playing field wasn't level. And I adjusted the playing field to help him learn to the best of his ability, to his own sort of individual or unique style and approach and special needs. Yeah, look, like if y'all have a question, you just have to ask me. I'm definitely on board with getting stopped. For instance, if I'm talking here and you don't hear anything, someone better tell me that the connection's gone so that I don't keep rambling. So feel free to interrupt me. Please, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to call me by my first name. Please don't call me Professor Farlow. Please don't call me Mr. Farlow. Just call me Mark, because I'm going to call you by your first name. And I want to start what I hope is a very long, honestly, friendship with you that will transcend this studio and go for as many years as I'm alive in your burgeoning and evolving career. So please call me by my first name. Oh, and here's the last thing. Every semester, 2 times per semester, the university asks you to participate in a course evaluation and faculty review. These are a pain in the ass. I know that. But I have to tell you how profoundly important they are to me as an adjunct. And not just because it helps me maintain a teaching position here, but I assure you that I'm telling you the truth on this. I take the comments that I hear in the course evaluations, and at the midterm, I try to make improvements right there on the fly. And the improvements that I hear that you want me to make at the end of the semester, I've made for your class this semester, for example. So one of those, so here's the deal. These things are really, really bloody important, right? They're really important. And here's the other thing. I think that you can check off or fill in the box against each question pretty easily. What I am asking you to do with some intentionality is to share with me your ideas and your opinions about the class, about the lab studio combination, about us as your faculty, about the program, the clarity of the program, the teaching of the program, the online thing, because this is still, jury's still out on this online thing as far as I'm concerned. So what you write in writing is really, really helpful to me. And so for me, I will, you can count on me asking you to do that at the midterm and at the final. But just between us, the final review for me is the most important one. So if you're going to discharge this responsibility of participating in the course review at the midterm, please, for gosh sakes, do it at the final. I really need that feedback from you in order to make this better. That's the syllabus. Are there any questions about the syllabus? If you have a question, just turn off your mute button and raise the question. If you have a question, if something's gnawing at you, I assure you someone else has that same question.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Who's talking, by the way?
It's Dasmond.
Okay,
Are we going to be using Canvas at all, or is it all going to be on Blackboard?
I hardly use Blackboard. I don't even know what Canvas is. So how's that?
The school's trying to transition us to that.
Yeah, that doesn't help me. I don't know what it is. What is it?
It's like Blackboard, but it's not. I don't know. I've never used it.
So does my lame ass answer your question?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, maybe, I don't know. I kind of hope that they don't make a change in the middle of the semester. You know, like when they make me change the password on my computer, like 2 weeks before final reviews, that drives me nuts because that means I have to go to campus and log on and log off so that I can come back for final reviews when the e-help people are gone watching Wheel of Fortune like the rest of the world and can't be available to help me. So yeah, that's totally inopportune. Anyways, go ahead. Who's this?
Trevor.
Go ahead, Trevor.
I asked my sister earlier today, and she said they're trying to transition all to use Canvas by as early as. But if they haven't made you aware of it, then there might be like a faculty memo or something they send out.
One more time, as early as when, Trevor?
They said this approaching fall.
Gotcha.
But she's one of the pioneers. I think they're probably testing, and then
good.
We'll see how it goes.
Good. Okay, thank you. So Desmond, there's your answer, right? Good. Who else has questions? Anything in general?
I have a question.
Who is this?
Fajer.
Okay, let me find you here. Okay, Fajer. Hey.
Well, my question is regarding Revit. So you said we're going to be using it heavily, especially towards the end of the semester. And I'm taking Construction Systems 2 right now.
With Eric?
Which teaches us Revit. Do you think, as I'm going to be going through the semester, taking these 2 classes, am I going to be up to date and able to use Revit?
Yeah.
First
of all, you're taking Eric.
That's true. Yeah.
Second of all, when we bring in like architects that have been working, say, for instance, Fajer, in AutoCAD only, we can get them on board in a week. So if they can do it, you can do it. And you're a lot younger, you're a lot better looking than they are, and you're also taking this class with Eric, who's going to bring you up to speed. And what I would like to suggest that you do is, lean on Eric, right, as the class is moving. I know Eric, right? So lean on him for advice as you're moving through it. And here's the other thing, your colleagues can help you. Remember, you're designing with a classmate this semester. You're going to be working with another partner. So there are just going to be some things that, one of you does that the other doesn't do, so that the whole thing moves up in quality and quantity. So maybe your partner is a better Revitizer, my word, compared to you, for example.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Good question.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And you're the one in Ann Arbor?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Who else has questions? These are excellent.
I do.
Who's that?
Cody.
Cody, I know you, Cody. Go ahead.
As far as the retention of student work, I think this is a university-wide thing, and I learned about it last semester, but does that extend to ideas as well? Is that property of the university as well?
I don't know the answer to that question. So let me parse out what I'm saying about the retention of student work. You share with me your work throughout the semester via, Google Drive. You upload your Adobe PDF file in a folder for Benchmark 1, Benchmark 2, Benchmark 3. And at that point, it's ours, right? Okay. And it's also mine because I download it to my hard computer here at the house, right? So that I can like sit back in 5 years and look wistfully after you've become this accomplished, award-winning, internationally acclaimed architect and say, I knew that curly-haired dude then, and look at his work, right? Here's what I do with your work. I will take, well, let's just say, I might take your wall section and make it part of my presentation for you for your next class, for the class after this class, to show the next shitheads how to draw a fucking wall section and use Cody's as exemplary, right? I might take Nathaniel's like aerial rendering of the city of, the neighborhood of Brush Park at night in snow, and use that drawing as an example of how to do an aerial rendering at night in snow using Lumion, right? That's how I'm using your work. I don't, right? So I am too busy, as you know. I am too busy to like chase competitions over the summer and use your work as my work. And I don't publish papers on your work. I'm not taking a PhD degree. So I'm not building a case for other things with your work. Your work is going to be, and I want to be really clear so you're really comfortable, your work is going to be the exemplary work for the classes after you.
Okay. And I wasn't implying the other stuff you brought up either.
Oh, no, I know that. But there are professors that we know here that do that build their career on the research, on the backs of the research that you guys do. That ain't me. I'm just too busy, and I'm too old. I'm just too busy and too old to do that.
Okay, thank you.
There will be a fine grained submittal at the end of the semester, and I do make the decision of who that will be, and I contact her or him. So you may need to share your work with the university for the fine grain review, but I'm just kind of like, hey, dude, can you send your drawings to Charlie O'Gene or Jim Stevens so that they can print it and they can post it up on the wall, and the full-time faculty can like sit back and assess it by rubbing their chin. You know what I mean? And then give you the certificate. I'm not party to any of that because, again, I'm at work. So you may need to share your work for that evaluation or audit, but the work that I talk about in the syllabus is really for the benefit of the generations after you, Cody.
Okay.
Clear. Good. Who else? That's a great question. And by the way, I can't wait to show you the work of the kids before you, because it's really kind of this, like, just in terms of like what kids are doing with Revit and Rhino and Grasshopper and the other software that y'all are using. It's kind of this interesting lineage of rendering and drawing styles. It's kind of cool. So I'm really excited to give you that talk. Who else has questions? Okay, let's go on to the work plan. Do y'all have the work plan? The work plan is kind of a complement to the syllabus. The work plan is a 2-page document that simply talks about your life for the next 31 classes. Let's go right to page 2. At the bottom of page 2, where it says Module 4, Final Design Proposal, says proposal twice, sorry, I'm not perfect. Benchmark 3. That's the wedding. That's the wedding date. You got to show up for the wedding, you guys. The wedding is April 24th and April 26th. Again, there will be 4 projects shared on April 24th, Tuesday evening, and Thursday evening, April 26th. Then, over that weekend, there's a lot of grading going on. And then our last class will be Tuesday, May 1st, right? And I can tell you, if you look at your watch right now, May 1st will be here in about 4.5 hours. That's how fast this semester is going to go. So right now, fasten your seatbelts. Here's why it goes fast. We have something called spring break, 2 words I've never formed together since I began working at YE in 1977. And then crunch week, 2 words I invented for my colleagues and studio mates here at Lawrence Tech. Week April 17th and Tuesday and April 19th is crunch week. So during that week, we do not have class session unless you ask me to meet with you, and I'm happy to do that. That's when you are balls to the wall, right? That's when everything's on the table and you're working to finish everything. Pencils down is a college-wide date. It is 11:59 Sunday, April 22nd. That means you all stop working. And I know you're going to ask this question then. You're going to ask it the week before. It means you stop working. It just means you stop drawing. You stop modeling. You stop designing. You stop doing that stuff, because the whole college is doing the same thing. They are stopping. What do you do that night? You get a good night's sleep. And our reviews are not until Tuesday, so that means you get Monday, right? If you're presenting on Tuesday, it means you get Monday, all day Monday, and it means you get all day Tuesday to think about what you're going to say, not just thinking about it in your head like, oh, I think I'll have a Big Mac with a quarter pounder. No, I think I'll have a fillet of fish. Doesn't mean like that. It means thinking with your pen or thinking by writing and typing out your script for your presentation, which, by the way, you should be thinking about as you're designing, as you're moving through the semester, right? But it means you need to get a good night's sleep. If you're on Thursday night, it means you get a little bit more time to sort of tee that stuff up. But pencils down is an important date. The whole college is embracing it, and it also is something that you will embrace. You can see that I give talks almost every week. You can see from the bold headers that there's benchmark reviews on March 20th and March 22nd, and there's actually an entire week of debriefings after. So where you are in March, late March, is pretty deep into the project, pretty deep into the documentation of the project, pretty deep into the integration of systems, and that's why we will spend more time together on the 27th and the 29th, right? We have spring break on March, basically from March 3rd, Saturday, March 3rd, through Sunday, March 11th. If you guys want to do a field trip, that would be when we do it. We can talk about that. The field trip is obviously optional, just like everything in the online studio is in terms of attendance. We have another pinup review in February 13th and February 15th, right? So that you can celebrate Valentine's Day. We will have post pinup debriefings on the 20th, the following Tuesday, right? And then your research work is due on January 23rd, right? Remember how I said the whole semester will go 4.5 hours? That's how long it'll take in real time. Well, today's the 9th, and the 23rd is your first deadline. And that's really how fast this semester goes. So here's how you can put yourself into the frame of mind to do this class. Here's the first and most important thing you need to do. Stay healthy. You have to stay healthy. You cannot get sick. I know that's asinine to say that, right? Like sound like your mom or your dad maybe. But I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, don't put yourself in a situation where you're gonna get sick. You cannot afford to get sick. If you get sick, you're gonna be way behind. You're gonna be way behind. So you have to stay healthy so that you can stay on top of what is arguably one of the most grueling studios you'll have as an undergraduate student. And probably, since you're putting so much on the line as a graduate student, to do well in the graduate program, you have to do well in this class. So you cannot afford to get sick. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything, right? So stay healthy. If you start to feel like poodle dip, start slamming orange juice, or go to the doctor, or go to the clinic, or call your mom, right? Call your grandma and get some love and find out a way to get better, but don't get sick. And if you start to get sick, get unsick, right? Here's something that's going to sting. No life changes. No life changes. What am I talking about? Don't break up with your boyfriend. Don't break up with your girlfriend, right? Don't get a boyfriend. Don't get a girlfriend. Stop, right? Don't get married. Don't get divorced. Don't do any of that crap. And that's really wise advice for you undergraduates, because you don't even know what I'm talking about. But for our graduate students, right, where they generally have jobs and maybe families, it's really hard for me to say all of that. But I really need to make you heed that advice as well. You all need to rely on the fortitude and the stability of your family and friends to help you get through this, right? This is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And for our graduate students, right? For our graduate students that are taking this studio, then critical practice in the summer, then ADS 1, ADS 2, and then practice portfolio. Those are 5 consecutive studios that will break anyone's back. And so you have to have tractor beam focus, Star Trek reference there. You have to have tractor beam focus to get through this as graduate students. This is a really, really exhilarating journey, but it is a huge marathon, okay? No life changes, right? So don't change jobs like Jason, right? Jason from Progressive AE. Don't get married like Shayna did, right? Don't be pregnant, please. Men, women, don't be pregnant. Don't get people pregnant, because your whole life changes, your health changes, your distraction levels go way up. Please try to keep your life in a sense of like monastic order, so that you can focus on the most important things that you have ahead of you. I know I sound like an ass. Let's go back to crunch week of 417 and 419. If I were you, I would ask for that whole week off from work. I don't know anything about your project. I don't know how good or strong or weak or how much improvement you're going to have this semester, but I would start that conversation with your employer if you're working now, right? I would start that conversation now, because you will need it. And if you can't have a whole week off, look at the calendar and maybe try to broker 3 days off or 4 days off, so that you can get some focus time, quality time during crunch week, which I've politely called crunch week, but I also will call it hell week. Every day of this semester, including other days of the semester that are like eccentric to the work plan, like the holiday of Martin Luther King, which is next week, spring break, and so on, are listed here so that you can translate this to your, your calendar. We have calendars with like Beagle of the Month, right? So you can translate it to your Beagle of the Month calendar, and or your Girl Scout calendar, whatever you're using, so that you can like understand where you are relative. It's kind of hard to understand something like this as a calendar, But if you translate it to the matrix calendar that you're maybe accustomed to, I think it will help you a great deal. You also see how often I'm going to be talking to you about ideas, sharing with you work that we're doing at the firm, sharing work of other architects, sharing ideas, sharing friends like Dustin, who are going to be a guest lecturer, so that you get the full benefit of as much stuff that can help round out your work as I can possibly sort of inundate you with. Any questions about the work plan? No life changes. No. And if you have a life change, please tell me about it in private so that I can accommodate your new learning style or a more individual learning style so that we can adjust. I mean, I know I'm an ass, but I mean, I will be reasonable if there is something that's coming up. And I know, I mean, I know life is real, life is gritty, and full of sort of messy vitality, as Robert Venturi would say. And life happens, right? Sometimes family members die, people get sick. I know that. But if you embrace the very first part of our conversation tonight, which has to do with etiquette, I think will go a long way to helping you get through what we might call a speed bump. Let me be really clear here. I am not a professor that is going to stand in the way of you graduating. My goal is to help you graduate, to help you get to a place where you're proud of the work that you've done, and that the work that you've done is commensurable with the work I have seen come from our school and the other schools that I've seen, because I jury in a lot of different places locally and regionally, right? So my goal is to help you do the very best work that you can imagine. But I also want you to know that you will go very far, very fast, if you pledge in your heart to do the very best work you possibly can as an undergraduate student in this class. It will help you get into grad school, and it will help you be a better architect for graduate school wherever you decide to go. And for our graduate students, it will give you the tools to excel at in a curriculum at Lawrence Tech, which is going to be completely different than the kind of experience you'll have here with us in comp design. I'll just say it as clearly as I can. The work that you'll do as a graduate student is highly research-based, and it's based on case making. It's based on a completely different set of values, a different kind of curriculum. But the tools that you'll learn here can apply to what you'll do there. But I don't think that there's going to be one professor in the grad school that gives you a program brief with areas and square footages. I don't think they're going to give you a work plan, right? They're not going to tell you what the pinup reviews are and what's due. They're not going to tell you, like I will this semester, that plan sections, elevations, and 3D models are required, and that when you draw an elevation, it has to have the context. You're not going to hear that in grad school. You're going to hear that here because that's the nature of a compulsory studio like ours, a capstone studio like ours. But the tools that you'll learn here will help you and be prepared, be preparing you for where you'll be come this summer. No questions on the work plan? Did I leave anything out? Did I leave a month out? Like I said, for each module, you will get a brief or work plan, not a work plan, you'll get a brief, and I'll share that with you the day that we start that. So we've dealt with the work plan, we've dealt with the module, we've dealt with the course syllabus. You learned a little bit about the studio as a brief, through the brief, and you've learned a little bit about yours truly, or you can learn that later. we're at 7:30. Why don't we take a 5-minute break, and I'll be back, and we'll go over the longer term sort of project, which is the program, the site and building program, and then we'll go right into the research, because I want to talk a little bit about where you're going to be going this semester in the 3 benchmarks, and then I'll go into what we're going to be doing for the very first review, the very first module, which is your research team. So I'll be back in about 5 minutes, and I'll see you then. Don't close out your computer, just like turn things down, if you will. Thanks. Okay. We're making good time tonight. And I'll be inviting Dan in just a few moments. Let's first talk about site and building program. I want to make sure everyone's here. Let me just click on. So I see Alec, and I see Andrew, Casey, Cody stepped away, Desmond is stepped away, Fajr is there, Hung is stepped away, John is there, Nathaniel, Nora stepped away. I'll give everybody a couple more minutes. Trevor's back. Nora, are you there? Desmond, are you there?
Hello? Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Andrew's there and Alex there. Okay. Yeah, you do look like you're sitting right next to Trevor, Alec. That's too bad. Sorry about that. Yep, I see that now. Hey, Nora, I'm going to mute you, Nora. There we go. Thank you. Yep. You're there, right?
I'm sorry?
Are you there, Nora?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just cannot see you. Oh, we might have just lost her. I'll give her another second. Okay, you're in the car, Nora.
Yes, I actually just got off of work and I had to my phone.
Okay, so again, you can come back and look at this later. Make sure you drive the speed limit. We should go over the next two documents, and then I'm going to invite Dan Farrow to come in. And I'm gonna mute you, Nora. Okay, so the site and building program document is a multi-page document that includes a series of sort of colored diagrams at the end, numbered 1 through 4, I think. The program brief itself is just a 2-page document, and suffice to say that, honestly, in late August, when Dale asked me to teach this class, I kind of scrambled, and I wanted to do something I hadn't done before, and the school was asking me to do that by teaching a comp design studio, and yet I had to do this class within the kind of curriculum requirements from the university, from NAB, the National Architectural Accreditation Board, and for the core faculty that teach this class extremely well all day long and have since 1995 or earlier. So I had the instinct, and I think it was a really good one, to do in effect what we're doing at Hamilton Anderson. We've been privileged to have this opportunity to design 3 buildings of several on 9 acres in a development that has been developed by Bedrock, which of course is Dan Gilbert's development company. Bedrock came to Hamilton Anderson in October of 2014. We helped them with the master plan for 9 acres. We created the appropriate residential typologies, which were apartment buildings, duplexes, carriage houses, townhomes, and renovation of existing townhomes on the street. So we created the 5 typologies, and we actually designed everything for the entire site that enabled Bedrock to get the approval to purchase the land from the city of Detroit. You know, the city of Detroit owns over 80% of the property in the city. And with the new planner of Maurice Cox, from our perspective, this is a really exciting time because now the city is committed to offloading these parcels, and they're doing it very carefully. They're doing it with RFPs so that they get the highest and best use for the parcels that the city owns, so that it returns more money to the coffers of the city by virtue of the sale. But the city is also setting the terms of engagement, the terms of a development for each of the pieces of the land that they own, by talking in the RFP document about density, about mixed use, about parking, giving the developer, giving the architects the written and graphical expectation of what they expect to see, much like your program brief. So I kind of thought that, you know, we could kind of end the idea of what we were doing at Hamilton Anderson for the Bedrock piece and let you guys participate. And that's exactly what we did. Just to back up slightly, after the city awarded in May of 2015 the land to Bedrock to develop on, Melissa Gilbert, an alum of our firm, had this brilliant idea to shake things up in terms of the mixture of talent and architects that would be working on the parcel. And so they brought in Christian Hertini to renovate the townhomes, which was brilliant because Brian's an old classmate of mine from Lawrence Tech. We're old buddies. He's an alum of Hamilton Anderson. And so he and his partner are renovating the 4 historic homes at Brush Park, the very first of which was documented by Nicole Curtis, the rehab addict for the Ransom Gillis House, which is kitty corner to your site. And then she gave Merge Architecture the opportunity to do the duplex on the north side of the development and the carriage houses on the historic alleys in the middle of the development at the south end of the development. And then Studio Dwell got to do the townhomes, and then LOHA got to do the 4 corner buildings, which add the most density and are maybe the most unusual buildings for the development. And here's the thing that was really, really fascinating, right? So we had this clean site save for the 4 historic buildings. So there was nothing on the site except 4 historic buildings. And each of us began to understand where our sort of properties were. Hamilton Anderson was asked to design the smallest building and the 2 largest apartment buildings, which are mixed-use buildings. And so as we were all designing in our own offices, we came together every 3 weeks to have a charrette, a 3-day charrette, where we kind of played our card and showed everybody what we were fixing to do and we would learn what they were fixing to do. And the work evolved in a very studio-like, grad studio-like contextual way. It was quite extraordinary to work with team members that we didn't really know very well, young team members that had really no experience doing anything like this. And we were all doing this on Brush Park. So so what I did to make August go a little bit more simply, so I wouldn't have to walk on the ledge, was I snapped off one of the projects that Hamilton Anderson was doing. It's called A3 in the program brief. It's on page 1, it's on page 2, and it's on page 4. A3 is the purple box on the left side of the site. The property itself is documented on page 4 dimensionally. It has 2 streets, Alfred and John R. It has an alley, and it has an historic property next to it. And that's what we did last semester, and that's what we'll do next semester, or this semester. Next semester, we might do the A6 site. But in any event, the idea for you guys is to say, in your mind, in the mythology, right, of our class, Hamilton Anderson did not design A3. Your team is designing A3. So, like, you and your partner are going to work together to produce a design that's competently documented for A3 against the deadlines that we have for you that we just talked about in the work plan, and the program statements, which are on page 1 and page 2 of the site and building program. Okay? That's the gist of it. What are you designing? You're designing a mixed-use building, and they're bloody complicated. They're very difficult to do, but I'm an expert at it, and I love doing them, and I love teaching people how to do them. So you got that going for you. It's an historic Brush Park, which is arguably the most important residential downtown neighborhood in Detroit. And it's a neighborhood that has one of the most unusual, well-documented histories, which you can learn about in Once in a Great City, a Detroit story by David Moranis, among other places. And if you're local, even if you're in Ann Arbor, you can go see it. You can go see our A3. It's got windows in it. It's up. The parking structure is built. The building's form and massing is evident. You can't walk through it because it's a protected job site, but you can see what we're doing there, and you can see what A6 is going to look like. So you can go there and kind of see things happening. And quite honestly, if you look at the aerial site plan, the Carriage House 5, Carriage House 6, CH5, CH6 are being built right now as we speak. And you can go to the websites, right, of each of the firms that are doing work there and look at their drawings for this project. And you can go to the City Modern Detroit website, which is hot linked in that PDF, and look at our renderings. We actually held the Revit model. We actually did all of the renderings for the City Modern Detroit site. So you can use those renderings if you want for your final renderings. You can see what the architecture looks like. So you're imagining that you and your partner are taking over the design work for A3 relational to this class, but also contextually relational to Brush Park, the historic home to the west of you, the historic apartment building to the south of you, and to City Modern Detroit. And if your head's not spinning now, I don't know when it will be. Right? So that's kind of the punchline. It's not just an apartment building, it's an apartment building that has age restriction. So one would have to be 55 or older in order to live there. And it has to have an affordable quotient. So 20% of the units that you design must be for people that live below the average mean income, right? So so you have to take a position on how people would be configured in an apartment building. We blended them throughout. You also have to design for accessibility, right? You have to design so that people that are old and blind or old and have walkers or wheelchairs can get around, right? There's so many restrictions in a mixed-use building that they become the sort of three-dimensional chess games, and they're really, really fun. Oh, and you have to park for everybody that lives there. So you have 50 units that you have to design. You have to design 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units, and you have to have a parking place for each of them. And here's the thing. With all the structure that's coming down through the building, you probably won't be able to get all 50 down below in one level below grade. So you may have to go deeper than one level, or you may have to go one level and park on the site. And when you park on the site, right, you have to be able to get to those parking places, right? So you're probably going to use the alley, because I'm not going to permit you to do a curb cut off of Edwards or John R., right? So I tie your hands in so many different ways in this project that the solution should, once you start to ponder it, become self-evident. The site plan really does tell you what can happen in terms of where things need to go, in terms of residential, in terms of retail, in terms of setbacks and whatnot. And the section helps you deploy maybe where and how that residential operates as it moves up through the building. So I'm deliberately trying to overwhelm you, but at the same time, this is exactly, you guys, what I give our interns to work on when we get these mixed use opportunities in our office. They don't have the luxury of working with one partner for the entire semester. They have to do this in far less time and with as much accuracy and sort of competency. So this is a very interesting simulation of what happens in our office. It's perhaps a simulation of what you would be doing in your office if you're working. And if you're not working in an office that does this kind of architecture, you're being trained to do this kind of architecture, and it will give you increased value wherever you are, whether you're going into a firm or whether you're working in one now. So we have a historical site. We have rarefied air in the terms of these amazing buildings designed by these amazing, really, really, really important architects from all over the country doing work at City Modern Detroit. You have a mixed-use building. You have to have an innovative building enclosure. You have to have a plausible structural system. You have to have solved all of the accessibility and life safety issues, translate no dead ends, for example. You have to calculate occupant loads. You have to calculate egress distances. You have to have a sustainability agenda. A lot of this is stuff that Dan is going to be talking about, and you have to do it within a time frame, right? So that's the program brief, and I wanted to put that out there tonight so that you knew where you were going with the research, and that you knew, looking at the work plan, that this stuff starts fairly quickly. So after the research benchmark, we will be getting into the design team efforts post haste. And I will tell you, I've just invited Dan, and I will tell you that once we get into the design phase, there will be a deadline at the first benchmark. You will want to have your design completed by then. Does that mean fully drawn and rendered and solved? No, but you will want to have it be workable, competent, safe, and integrated to the extent that it can be at that point. Because once we get past benchmark 1, we can't really look back. We have to document it, we have to refine it, but we have to pull it together. So the way we build your knowledge of mixed-use buildings and the themes that drive them is that we break you into separate research teams or research themes that cover 12 different categories, which are articulated in the research topics document, which again is a multi-page document, 4 pages. The first 6 themes will be evaluated by Dan Farrow. They include climate research, lead sustainability, high performance enclosures, HVAC, water and electrical systems, alternative energy systems, a sustainable structural system appropriate for mid-rise construction, and HVAC as it relates to the envelope, which of course relates to ASHRAE 90.1, the current code for the state of Michigan. You will be designing this building against the Michigan Building Code, so make sure that you're aware of that. And then the last group of themes, the last 6 themes are themes that I will be grading. The City of Detroit and the Brush Park neighborhood, the Detroit Future City Framework, as well as New Urbanism, mixed-use hybrid buildings, which really has to do with case studies, a discussion on housing and aging baby boomers and what does that demographic look and smell like. Someone has to develop the site model and document the project photographically, the site photographically, and then building codes for mid-rise 5-story buildings. And there are student quantities for each of those categories. So if you look at item 12, building codes and mid-rise, there's 2 students in the parenthetical at the very last of it. That's the maximum number of students that we will have doing that research. So like baby boomers is just sort of 1 person. And the same is true for Dan's categories. And Dan has his own assignment sheet for this module. And so you will want to look at that. For some reason, Dan is not logging in. And let me send him a note. Beg your pardon. So I think what you need to do is find a partner. Some of you have already done that. There is a document in Google Drive that was shared by Cody and Richard. I think they're already business partners in this gig. So you're going to want to find another partner. You can do that now, and then you will want to look, if you have not reviewed everything that's been dumped into Google Drive by yours truly. You will see then, once you do, that I've shared with you everything that I can share with you from last semester. So there's a Revit model there. Now, is it a good one? Is it workable? Can you improve it? Do you have to start over? I don't know, right? But I gave you what I got, right? There's photographs, right? There's actually videos in the Revit model. So you can look at what's there, and it's not just there. I mean, almost every category that I have owned for this particular module, which starts on page 2, I have materials in the folder for you to react to, or to build on, or to use and make it your own, right? So if you choose one of those categories, you may have some benefit, but I think that Dan has a ton of material that he has shared with you as well in order to facilitate sort of a buckshot of awareness for this particular phase. I'm not sure why Dan is. Let me just do his email address as a straight up at ltu.edu. I don't see him. Have any of you been in one of these online real-time class sessions before? Have any of you done this before?
I have.
Yeah.
No, I have not.
Okay. Who has?
I have.
Who was that?
Cody.
Cody and Fajr have. Anyone else?
Fun.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha. So the more people we have in the class, the smaller your images. So right now you're about the size of a 2-penny stamp on a postcard. So it's really hard to see who's here. and I'm not sure. Let me text Dan.
I had to restart my browser, Chrome browser, a couple times before it worked.
Oh, really? I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I've been in sessions where the professor actually created a new meeting with all the invites plus someone new in case that's necessary.
Wow. Who was that? Here at Lawrence?
Nathan.
Oh, really?
No, it was for research methodology on a bar. Had to create a second meeting to get additional people sometimes to join.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mark, you mentioned there was a Revit file?
Yeah, it should be in the that folder. No, not a Revit file, a site model. I actually don't know what file format it's in. Let me see.
Is that a folder that was created in the drive that you shared?
Yes.
I don't see any invite. I have the Flash directory. This is Nathan again.
Okay, so I've shared with everyone the I've shared the folder with I've shared material in the folder you shared with me. Is that available to everyone else?
I only have Flash directory right now.
Is the folder in the email or on Blackboard?
No, it's through Google.
Through Google.
So I saw Dan joined us, but I'm not seeing him here.
He's here.
I'm here, Mark.
Okay, but I'm not. Oh, there you are, Dan. I see you. Welcome. I see your icon. There you are. Greetings. So let's see. So I will work with. Let me do this real quick. I will work with whoever signs up for the site model and share directly with them anything I can if what I put in that folder right now is not adequate or it's not complete. I can't really see what's in there right now. So Dan, welcome. We are looking forward to turning the microphone over to you right now. I have gone over 3 hours, 2.5 hours of conversation relative from the sort of general to the specific, and where we've just left off is module 1, research, and I've gone over sort of my project statement for that module, and I've alerted everyone to the fact that you have a grade sheet or a program brief for that module as well. And right now what I've said to them is that they need to have a partner to work for the rest of the semester. And if there is a research theme or research category, Dan, that has 2 students, they will have to have a partner for that particular exercise. So for example, sustainable structural systems of mid-rise buildings and the HVAC ASHRAE energy envelope code themes number 5 and 6 of your assignments will require 2 students. And I have similar sort of groupings as well. So I'll basically tell you that that's where we've left off, and I'll give you the floor to welcome everyone to the class. And since you're the director of this this comprehensive design studio, I think, and with so many years experience having taught this class, I think your perspective on this class will be really, really helpful. So let me unmute you. Why isn't it coming up? Can you unmute yourself, Dan? There we go. Nope. Trevor, can you unmute him? It just said that you muted him, Trevor. You're free to go, Dan.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Hope that you've had a good session thus far with Mark. And so just trying to go over a few things right now, perhaps on the syllabus, just to understand the syllabus side requirements. My purpose as lab instructor generally is to work with the following topics, and I have printed or submitted to you the lab syllabus, so that should be available to you in Blackboard. If you haven't taken a look at that, you should probably take a look at that. This is 2 credits out of the 6 credits, so in terms of the grade distribution, that'll roughly be about 1/3 of the grade recorded for the course. Most of the topics that the lab component is associated with tend to be some of the NAAB criteria that generally follow along the following types of themes: the development of a structural system, development of an HVAC system, development of enclosures, and other building systems that are related to the comprehensive design project. Most of the lab-based content, I would say, will tend to be factual, so to speak. For the most part, we'll tend to focus on that. Professor Farlow and I have sort of had a chance to discuss it multiple times, that how we would see ourselves involved jointly with you in the studio. So in terms of issues like building codes, for example, Professor Farlow has his direction that he'll be providing to you on those. In the event I see something that looks like it's a problem with the building code, as they normally come up throughout the semester, I will probably alert you and say, I think you need to have a discussion with Professor Farlow on this. This might be a problem. So you'll have that sort of feedback from me at that level. Other than that, I probably will not be engaging in design discussions with you, only engaging those topics related to the lab components that obviously have an impact on the building decisions that you're making and the design decisions that you're making. Regarding design decisions, defer to Professor Farlow on those matters. So the first assignment that Professor Farlow referred to is the research assignment. So I believe under assignments, I just updated today the lab module for module 1, and there are a collection of different topics there. So if you haven't seen that, I would probably advise you to take a look at that and to kind of go through them. I'm going to see if I can open them up and take a look at them with you, if that's okay. And just give me a moment here. It looks kind of like you got dropped here on the system. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm sort of trying to get back on here. Okay. Can you see me?
Sorry, Dan, I'm trying to unmute you and I'm having trouble doing that for some reason. It's not
Uh, are we okay?
Wow. There's two Daniels talking here, so that's
Yeah, it
probably
looks like
why.
there are two. I was gonna say.
Right. Okay, so go ahead, Dan. Oh, it's still doing it. So Cody or Richard, if you can unmute him, that would be helpful. For some reason, it's just not. There we go. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Neither of us can unmute Professor Farrow.
I'm not sure why his mute button is grayed out and I can't seem to override it.
Neither of us can either.
That's curious. But I am only seeing one icon for Dan, so I'm... I don't know why he's getting so much reverb on that. So Dan, we're getting nothing but reverb from you, which is excruciating. So I don't know what to do here. Maybe can I ask you perhaps to close and come back into the class? I can re-invite you. Yeah, thanks, Nathaniel. That's probably true.
He probably has two windows open.
Do you think
with this
so?
Chat. That's because I still see him, and then there's still one more.
Okay, he just left.
Oh,
there we go.
So let me try and invite him again. Hopefully we don't get the Jimi Hendrix reverb. Sorry about that, everyone. Here he is.
How am I doing now? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, good.
That's better.
Mike seemed to have something saying camera not working. Are you having problems seeing me? I'm getting some head nods, yes.
Yes, we cannot see you.
Okay, I'm not sure what's going on. The camera light is there.
Mm-hmm.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that those that can get on Blackboard or then can take a look at the module 1 that came from me as a lab assignment. Open that up and take a look at it. Maybe we can talk about that. How's
Okay,
that?
so we should all go to Blackboard right now.
If you can get the module 1, it says research phase. And it has items 1 through 6 on the top. Those are the ones you referred to. Climate research, sustainability, high performance enclosures.
Right.
Does everyone have a chance to get to that? I'll give you a minute.
Yeah, I'm going there right now.
Okay. So I'm going to run through some of those with you, and basically, since you can't see I can't be seen on camera anyway, I don't think I can present this, so to speak. It seems to not give me that option at the moment. So let me just run through that. Am I coming through okay?
Yes.
All right. So in terms of the climate research, I did have one person, so I'm not sure how that'll relate to Professor Farlow's idea of pairing, but let me just go through this for you and with you in a moment here. One of the attributes of the course is to understand ecological environmental responsiveness as part of the architectural solution. And of course, that has a manifestation, not just in terms of technology and some of the decisions you make in terms of materials and systems, but it also manifests itself in terms of other characteristics or attributes such as building form, building orientation, etc. So this will be the opportunity with the climate research to begin to understand those characteristics. And so the person that takes this on, one, should have the textbook or be able to get it fairly quickly because there are references to it there as well. There is some software that you would need to download. It's called Climate Consultant. It's from Professor Murray Milne at UCLA. Once you obtain that, you'd want to download the site data, climatic data for Detroit, Michigan. That's your closest reference city, and upload that. Once you do that, you'll be able to turn on some information within that. You'd want to look at the ASHRAE code that references 2005 for your evaluation methodology. That'll be the most appropriate of the three options there. Make sure that your internal gains are turned on for the evaluation of the building type, and the building is occupied 24/7 because it's a residential project. You'd be occupying it throughout the day, 7 days a week. So those are sort of the primary headings. I haven't really had too many issues with students with this software. I'm certainly going to be able to answer any questions you have online or through phone calls, but usually it works fairly well. It's an easy download and it's easy to bring up. Once you get through that, you're going to be able to take a look at information regarding climate characteristics. So it'll be telling you information such as the heating degree days, cooling degree days, the nature of the climate temperature variation, percentage of clear sky days, probably even give you information on ground temperatures, for example. And the most important chart will be what looks like a psychrometric chart to you, but you want to make sure that the bioclimatic strategies is turned on. It should be pretty easy to see those strategies. And the purpose of that basically is to ground your project decisions in terms of the energy considerations that you're going to make regarding the building envelope and passive possible conditioning for the project, to ground that in the existing climate condition. And so it is the starting point for the most part that most HVAC engineers will work with. If they're trying to understand your project and they're trying to understand the systems, the decisions you're making, they'll generally start at this point. So that's our starting point in terms of a data point for us to understand climate. In addition to that, you have in your booklet or in your possession the one book regarding the sustainable building and technology. And so there is a section there that identifies certain characteristics that are relevant, such as the building orientation, the building footprint dimensions, the surface area to volume ratio, the location of service cores and elevators, etc. You would have to select the right climate zone in order to see that, and that would be the temperate climate. That's where Detroit is located. In the back of the book is a DVD, so to make it easy for you, if you upload the DVD information and you go into some of the basic strategies, you can start to see the characteristics that you would need to have reference for you for that climate condition. The program also identifies different types of building profiles, and so given Professor Farlow's housing project, which looks like somewhat of a courtyard type housing, you probably want to select the option that looks like a courtyard type building. It's probably going to look like an H or an O sort of profile, so to speak, as a profile that would make sense. Once you do that, you'll be able to understand what the recommendations are for climate responsiveness. Now, I know that you may or may not be able to achieve all of those based on considerations such as the project itself or the site conditions, but it's important to understand what they are and to find out that you can understand what they are, and if you have to deviate from them, that you are deviating from them and to what degree you're deviating from them. There are books that are also good references, Heating, Cooling, Lighting by Norbert Lechner, that you probably want to take a look at in terms of understanding certain strategies. So the purpose of this exercise will be to understand the climatic conditions and the implications they have to architectural form making and orientation of the building footprint. the emphasis should probably be in the reporting more on the understanding the bioclimatic strategies and the implications in terms of architectural form and footprint. While temperature and humidity conditions, of course, are relevant, probably spending at length of time in this understanding climate in itself is not the real focus. Now, for all of these tasks that I do have past examples for you that I will share with you, so you can see past projects. Now, there, of course, may not be your climate zone. They're not going to be your project type necessarily. So, but you'll be able to see how those sorts of reports have been put together in the past successfully for reference. So I'll be sending that. If I don't send that to you tonight, I'll certainly send that to you tomorrow. I just need to know who are the individuals that I'm going to be sending this information to. It would be helpful by the end of the day if you could send me, or by tomorrow morning at the soonest, an email through Blackboard saying, Professor Farrow, I'm interested in this topic. So I can act on that immediately. The second topic was lead for new construction. That was again identified as one person. Generally with sustainability, we see it's important to have some sort of a metric in order to measure sustainability. Now, it's not that I'm married to any particular metric. There are all kinds of them that are available to you, but LEED tends to be one that's generally quite common. And from my experience, most of the metrics do have a fairly common terminology and a fairly grounded and very common theme. So I don't think it makes that much difference whether we're looking at LEED or whether we're looking at a living building challenge or something else. I think these are all fairly common today. So the purpose of this report will be the individual who will be gathering information to understand what is the LEED system, how are credits earned, how are they measured, and then also what I've had success with in the past is students finding examples of a real project where the LEED credit was earned, and they explain in the report how the LEED credit was earned. And again, I have past examples for you as well. A number of the projects that I've done over the years, students do take the time and the initiative to actually see if they are earning LEED credits. Now, there are some that you could basically discern right away. So those of you that are doing site analysis work under Professor Farlow, you probably want to look at the LEED credits for site, such as whether it's a mixed use area, whether it's a brownfield redevelopment, or working with an existing area as opposed to new in an area that's undeveloped. Also would be the provisions for public transit access. So public transit access would be important to understand as well. In terms of the building program, Professor Farlow and I have discussed some attributes that we think would help you earn LEED credits. I think they're embedded in the program for you, but if not, we'll make accommodations for them as we go forward. The next task has two persons. It's referred to as high performance enclosures and architecture. Keep in mind the relevancy here is that about 12 to 20% of building space conditioning, that is your HVAC loads for heating and cooling, will come from the exterior envelope decisions that you make. So it's a fairly significant issue here. I would say more and more every time I go to a conference, technical conference, there's more detail and discussion going on about the building enclosure and the envelope. And the building codes are now changing so that they're asking for more information about the characteristics of the envelope as well. So I know I've got a long litany of references here for you, but I've taken time to go through a number of presentations geared for architects, architecture students, I think, can understand these or will be able to, regarding the characteristics of the building envelope. And most of these, in some cases, they do reference the climate condition that we are, which is in the Detroit, Pontiac, Michigan area. So you need to take a look at some of these. One that I would point out that I think could be relevant here is something called passive house enclosures. It's on page 3, the top of page 3. A passive house is one of the more emerging climate responsive envelope conditions that we've seen in architecture in the last 5 to 6 years. And they are now being able to be achieved for mid-rise and high-rise buildings. And there's a couple of references there to projects at that scale, for example, a dormitory at Cornell. So I'd encourage you to take a look at some of the passive house information. Also, a variety of types of resources are there. So it's not just one type of material enclosure, but there's multiple types of enclosures. There's precast concrete, masonry enclosures, wood or panel type enclosures, lighter gauge panel enclosures. So there's a variety of different types of materials and systems that you might be encountering. and further discussions about the need to reduce things like thermal breaks in a system and what do conditions like continuous insulation really mean. Now, I realize that some of this information is going to be overwhelming, but keep in mind that we will not be asking you to address all of this information at one time. We're going to break it out through the semester so that only the relevant attributes or characteristics at the time of which you're going through the design process need to be addressed, will be asked to be addressed. So, for example, bioclimatic study and climatic conditions, you probably need to have some basic understanding of that fairly early on in order to be on the right track. In terms of lead for new construction, I think that varies. You might start to think about those issues earlier on, but you might be seeing more of them unfold with relevancy as you move further towards the back, middle of the back of the process. High performance enclosures, it's probably too soon in the initial few weeks or starting portion of the semester to start thinking about them, but they may, of course, be much more relevant when we get to the midterm, and when we get past the midterm, some of those issues will be coming out. If we go on to number 4 on the list, it should be on page 4 on the list. You see HVAC, electrical, water systems, alternative energy, and again, that is 2 persons, so that should be covered for us there. Basically, the other part that we're going to be trying to address here is to try to make some of the right decisions on sort of some of the basic systems that you need to address energy conservation and resource conservation in the project. So as you scroll down, you'll probably see under the first heading, possible HVAC systems. And so these have been some research that I've been working on recently, and I've involved some discussions with others about where you could find possible sources for power, where you could find potential sources for the HVAC systems, heating, cooling, the fresh air intake systems that you would need, and how that would be effectively distributed in the building to minimize the use of energy. So you'll see roughly a number of options here to explore, and you probably want to do some research there. As you go further on, you'll see a discussion of alternative energy, how to provide efficiency with domestic hot water, how you can provide efficiency with appliances and lighting, and then you'll see a variety of titles under articles and resources, and a number of those should help you make decisions and lead you to some overview understanding of basic HVAC systems, and also in particular systems that are relevant for mid-rise apartment complexes. In addition, you'll see some information on page 7 of 16, building automation controls. So these would be the type of controls and monitoring that's not just about an individual apartment owner monitoring how much energy they use or setting their thermostat, but basically an entire building owner and the management of that building would be able to understand more about how energy is being utilized throughout the building, throughout the year, and for where the energy is going and for what components that energy is being consumed. One of the reasons this is important today is because of what's called building commissioning. So part of the LEED credits you would find is the idea that over time you can essentially fine-tune the building to be more efficient in energy. And the way in which that's done often is because this sort of management software is put in place at the construction phase and makes that possible for building managers over time. On the bottom of page 7, you'll see the number high performance enclosures, 1 person. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, that I think that's there. I think that maybe overlapped with another, that maybe it was an overlap with the other section. Sorry, that should be taken out. Sustainable structural systems and overview of sustainable materials, number 5, that's on the top of page 8. So that would be an opportunity for someone to look at the structural systems that are going to be relevant for this project, but also a list of some of the sustainable materials and products you might choose from. So I've given you kind of an outline of the format here. These are potential structural systems that you would consider. Taking a look at system span issues, sustainability characteristics, construction type and code issues relative to these. The construction type and height area limits, some of the information will address that for you, so it's going to make it clear what you can and perhaps can't use here. And then also there's reference to the use of podiums. And so podium is probably a term we're going to see more for mid-rise apartment type complexes.
Right.
Podium tends to be either at the ground level or the subgrade level, and it usually indicates a change in use. And the reason that's important, because typically with use, you see changes in construction type, and there's issues for fire separations, height and area limits, for example, and fireproofing of materials. So there's a number of articles there that explain what a podium is and what characteristics it has and how it's applied in mixed use or apartment type complexes. So you can take a look at.
And we found that podium is also the marker or the moment when, in a hybrid structural approach to a mixed-use building, is when it goes from like concrete to wood, for example.
Right.
So everything that's built upon the podium has one occupancy or use, but it also might have a unique structural system that comprises that occupancy, and then the stuff that's in and below the podium might be a different structural system and a different use or occupancy.
Right, and those are the key issues that why you have to understand podiums, both basically from the code perspective, the use issues, and the fire ratings, and the dimensional changes that occur from one system to the next. And then there's also some load transfer that will have to go on. That is both gravity and lateral. So we'll have to talk about how that will work. There's a little summary there on the top of page 9 that sort of talks about structural system choices for multi-story building, multifamily. So I'm not going to read through that, but that's an excerpt there I sort of found fairly useful to initiate some thoughts about what this topic will be about. Underneath that, you're going to see on page 10, et cetera, various points of reference regarding structural systems. So in multifamily art and multifamily design specifically. Wood, again, is an opportunity, I believe, today because of cross-laminated timber, CLT. So there are some references to how CLT is working its way into mid-rise apartments and how that addresses issues like the building code, as well as basic load transfer and spanning. So some of you might be interested in CLT. The history of CLT is that it came about relatively recently, and it's predominantly considered to be a way of addressing sustainability in larger scale buildings that was not available with steel or concrete construction, because wood is generally considered to be more sustainable. It's a renewable resource, has less embodied energy. So the code movements and the direction of technology is to see if wood can be used in applications with higher loads and larger scale buildings, which in the past it was not allowed. There is some research moving forward to try to move it into fairly tall buildings, almost at the high-rise level at this point. And there are some examples of these projects built throughout the U.S. and Canada and Europe today. So, let's see, references to precast concrete, other steel concrete as well. Steel as well as concrete is there as well. As you move on to part 2 of that task, it says sustainable materials. That's at the sort of at the top of page 11. So I'm just asking that person or that group to look at 5 or 10 sustainable materials that would be relevant to various basic building components, such as the structural system, the exterior wall, interior walls, window glazing, issues of that sort. Also to begin to understand, pardon me, how you measure sustainability in terms of material choices. There are some software opportunities that are available to you for free. Athena and Bees are 2 softwares that you see there, and Tally, T-A-L-L-Y, is a new one. The advantage to Tally is that you create your model in Revit and you upload the Tally software from the Autodesk website. Tally can read the data and information you embedded in the model regarding material selections, and it can give you life cycle analysis, embodied energy profiles right away. And I know that today the discussion frequently in sustainability and architecture is to use what's called interoperable software, or to use software that basically is part of an integrated project delivery platform, meaning software that can be exchanged and used for more purposes other than the architecture, but also for engineering and some energy management, energy simulation studies. Professor Farlow and I worked through securing a person that's going to be giving you a lecture. I think it's April 5th of the year on energy management software with Insight 360 from Autodesk, and so we'll get to that point later in the semester. The purpose there will be actually for you to validate a lot of the sustainability decisions that you made, and usually we've had good success with the Insight 360. We're seeing very low levels of energy consumption, being able to meet certain benchmarks like the EIA 2030 initiative, or even in some cases getting close to net zero or being net zero. just to give you my insights on sustainability, I think I have, platform that recognizes that not everyone in the class will want to foreground and promote that issue, and maybe not that strongly interested in the issue as others. And so I'm tolerant of that, so to speak. I think that's up to the individuals to decide to the degree to what extent you like to promote that in your work, or how much you're interested in promoting that in your work. That said, I do have to emphasize that at some level, even though it might not be the highest level, we are asked to deal with environmental responsiveness and in terms of the system. So I think if you're worried that I'm going to be the person who's going to be slapping solar panels on every surface of your building, please don't think that's going to happen here.
That's funny.
And as we move down to sustainable systems and codes, one person, we're looking at the ASHRAE code, and sorry, that was number 6, sustainable systems and codes, one person. The energy code I'm going to ask you to take a look at here for energy performance criteria is ASHRAE 189.1. It's very similar, somewhat similar to the ASHRAE 90.1 code, which is the common code that most projects will be built, but it's a bit at a higher level in terms of achieving better performance criteria and outcomes in terms of energy conservation. So I'm going to be asking you to understand some of the basic provisions regarding the building envelope. So it would be questions or be issues such as what are the R values for different types of walls based on the climate? And in Detroit, I think your climate zone 5 for ASHRAE, but you would have to look that up. I can't remember. I think it's ASHRAE's climate zone 5. I think it's classified as cold and humid, if I remember. In addition, they'll be asking you for information such as the U values of assemblies like window frames or doors. They'll also be identifying criteria for solar heat gain reflection coefficients for glass and glazing. You'll also find information such as the recommendations for the percentage of glazing and glass along the walls and the percentage of roof surfaces devoted to skylights and clear stories as well. Now, the ASHRAE codes are performance-based. They're not necessarily a code that requires you only to hit that particular requirement in terms of, let's say, a spatial condition or physical condition. It looks overall at how well your building energy performs. So when I say that, what I mean is that you might say to me, well, I don't think my basic idea works with only having 40% or 35% glazed surfaces. I think I need to have more than that. And the answer is yes, you can have more than that, but what are the exchanges and trade-offs you're going to make? You may have to change some of the R values and the glass glazing values in order to make that viable in terms of energy performance. So they're not absolutes, it's more of a performance, and what is the eventual performance metric will be if you can run it through Insight 360, and we'll find out what your energy utilization is. And I think, on the bottom there is the grading rubric. So if you go through that, you'll see some of the basic topics upon which the grading will be undertaken. Research quality, the documentation of the slideshow you're presenting, oral presentation, all of those will be measured and evaluated. So the purpose of this information, once it's all been completed, will be to share it. So we expect to be able to post it on Blackboard, exchange it with everyone. And that as the time progresses throughout the term, as I said before, we'll probably be pointing to some of this as relevant and some of it will be on hold for a while.
Right.
But you should, if done properly and effectively, you should be setting the foreground for basically all the critical research that you need to do for the project. And I think, as Professor Farlow might have talked about, C1, NAB C1 is a research outcome for this course. And so this is setting the tone and the direction for correct research and credible research that needs to be completed to make the right design decisions later, and to integrate the type of information that you'll have to be integrating in terms of performance criteria for the project later on. So that's my summary.
That's excellent. I would add, Dan, that your grading rubric content, I think, mirrors the content of the one that pertains to the 6 categories that mine talks to. So I think there should be comfort in the students for that. And I think for me, the most important point, I mean, clearly, if I were one of these fine individuals sitting here listening and looking and reading all of this, I would feel perhaps a bit overwhelmed at all of that. And I think that's fine. I mean, that's kind of the feeling that you get when you begin any complex project. I always sort of talk about how one eats an elephant. You eat it one bite at a time. And I think that's kind of how you have to do it. But I also think that this stuff's really, really important stuff. And in a studio where we're asking you to juggle all of these activated chainsaws in the air, we're trying to create this environment where you don't drop them and you don't slice off any digits, because that's really what we need you to be doing when you're working in our offices. So there's something in all of this that mirrors what we do in practice. And there's like a lot of the research that you're going to be doing, just like Professor Farrow was saying, that may not apply directly today to your work, and it may be something that you go back to in a few weeks or in a month, and maybe it's something you come back to in a year. But I think the research is there because it's meant to inform your work. And I think the last thing I'd say that I find really refreshing for a studio like this is that this exercise, this 2-week thing that we're doing, this module, is really meant to be shared. It's really meant to be disseminated so that you are all going to be experts. You and your colleague are going to be experts in this one category, and that you're going to give a presentation that shares what you know, not just in terms of flaunting what you know, but sharing information that will be of benefit, right, to your classmates, so that they can take the knowledge that you have, the resources that you pull together, and be able to design buildings that take your research in and implement it and make it, make it something that goes into action. So the idea of dissemination, sharing, is really key. And ultimately, what else happens is, as the semester is evolving, and this happens a lot with, the structural team member or the HVAC team member or the code team members, as they get the callbacks, right? They are the team members that are on call throughout the rest of the semester. When something like, how do I compute the diagonal distance for proximity of 2 egress stairways again? And I can tell you what it is, right? But I want you to know that either on camera and in class or off camera, through your own Google Hangouts, which we encourage you to do, you can converse with one another and create that exchange, that dissemination of information. This is really kind of the beauty of a project like this, in a studio like this. You're all collaborating in your own areas, knowing that what your research is doing is informing the design work of you and your teammates when you move into that design phase. So this is a really central step. It's an important step, and we're covering a lot of terrain here, which is why you are understandably probably a little overwhelmed. But I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, I think to get back to Mark's point, the difficulty is going to be that you're going to see that there's.
Whoops.
But our purpose will be to structure the class in such a way that you should have the information that's relevant for you at the time that you need it, and we'll be able to try to direct you away from information that you don't need at this time. If we're doing things right, which is our intention here, it basically, the decisions you make early on will be manifest themselves with decisions later on that will support the earlier decision and not conflict with it. So.
Okay, so are there any questions for Professor Farrow or for me? You all have a lot to take in. I can imagine that it is a bit overwhelming. What I think that you need to do, and I'm sort of seeing a trail of activity coincidental to this discussion about about where the information is in Google Drive. I think the task at hand really is to team up. If you want to take a category, put your stake in the ground and tell people on the matrix that I've asked Richard to consider making what you want to do, and fill that up. We need to have you all populate that. If there's a team that is involved in, if there's a team that has 2 students that need to work, you need to find that teammate. So you need to do that, quite honestly, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, tomorrow morning at the latest. So populate that matrix and share that with me, and then I can post it on Blackboard as well as in Google Drive, so that we have this information sort of accessible to all parties concerned. But we need to implore you to hit the ground running and jump right in. Now, the other thing that I think is important is that I will be able to talk about almost any of these topics, but I won't be able to be as knowledgeable about some of the topics as Professor Farrow will be. And I think the sort of flip-flop is true as well. And that's really the beauty of a collaborative teaching environment, where there's one professor serving as lab and one professor serving you in the studio. So if you're not getting the answers from me, you know you can get them from Dan, and vice versa. And I think that's how you need to work it. And that's because that's how it works in an office. There are going to be some principals and some project architects that are all about lead and sustainability and for instance, and then there's some that are going to be totally geeking out on the code, or totally geeking out on site and history and context, for example. So you need to understand that dynamic exists in an office, and it's going to exist here in our studio. And that's why this is such a lovely project, this capstone project.
Just to reiterate Mark's point that the issue of teamwork is important. Basically, if you're not carrying the load, so to speak, that you need to carry on this end, it will not just affect you; it affects everyone.
Well, sure.
Because you will be the point person we're going to be directing your material towards for reference. Our purpose is to develop the background material that everyone essentially needs. Now, that said, there will be some supplementary lectures and other discussions here, but predominantly this task is to generate the key pieces of information that everyone will need. And it is an authoritative document, and we need it to be well thought through and well prepared.
Mm-hmm.
If there are problems in the original submission, we will ask you to revise it.
Yep. Okay. Any questions for Professor Farrow?
So once I have the updates from everyone in terms of what task teams they're going to be working on, please get me an email as soon as possible. I can correspond with you. Again, past project examples, answer any questions that you will have going forward.
Great. Let's see. I guess the other thing I would say is that there will be times during the overall studio session where you will see Professor Farrow and me here together. For instance, maybe at like a review or maybe at the presentations. For example, at the end of this module. And there will be times like tonight where Professor Farrow comes in at sort of the start of the lab time. And so if he's not here for the entire time, when he is here, you need to be prepared to engage him and be prepared with questions so that you can use his time with you to the sort of maximum extent, right, to the fullest sort of capacity. And the converse is true for yours truly. I will be in all of the lab session. So I will be with you all for that entire time period to sort of be the counterpoint, but also to learn from him and also to learn from each of you, because I think the subject is so important. So I just wanted to sort of clarify that point as well. And I'm just checking my email box. I'm seeing Richard has created the spreadsheet. I'm seeing Jamie has sent something. Also, I think I was able to share the Google Drive with everyone. I think Caitlin asked for that access, and I do I understand correctly now that you all have access to the Google Drive folder that we created at the beginning of the semester? Okay, super. If someone doesn't have access to it, make sure you're the squeaky wheel and let Richard or Trevor know so that can be remedied. There's a plethora of information in there, and just like in an office, you're not going to find everything in one book on one bookshelf. You have to look at all of this material in what I would maybe characterize as a complementary, sort of in a complementary way. So you may find things in Blackboard, you may find things on Google Drive, you may find things in an email, right? You may find things in a text message that I send you. So the goal would be to make sure that it gets to a point where it's institutionalized, so that it's on Blackboard and Google Drive at some point, so that we all benefit from it. All right. So there's going to be some stewardship that needs to happen in terms of all of this material and research collection. So Nora is saying she does not have access. Can someone make sure that she does? Thank you, Richard.
As we go forward, there'll be times where I'm going to probably do initiation of the login for the session for the lab.
Yep.
So I'll be making some presentations. So you'll know that when that's going to be coming up, and I will make as much of an effort as I possibly can to sit in on these studio sessions with Professor Farlow as well, depending upon what the time frame looks like for me. But I'll try to make an effort to be on all of these with you as well, so I can hear the dialogue.
So Dan, let me ask this question of you. So you're teaching this class and the studio on the ground?
Correct.
On Mondays? Or
Monday and Thursday.
So Thursday, which is also Thursday, is a bloody long day for you.
Yes.
Oh dear. Okay. So
there will be there may be some conflict with that time frame, but I will try to do the best I can to get into part of it.
So if there are times then, Dan, that your sort of participation and presence would be really helpful to the group at the same time that I'm in the class, I will try to make sure that we do that on any day but a Thursday, so that we don't exacerbate an already sort of daunting schedule for you.
Or if you can wait a little bit later in your session on Thursday, then that's likelihood where I'll be able to join in.
Brilliant. Okay. And then, so unless otherwise noted, Dan, I will just invite you.
Yes.
I'll try to give you a heads up, like a text message or an email, that I'm finishing up with Fodger right now, so you can. I'll invite you shortly, and then you'll know when you're ready or when you're on, and then we can go from there. But like I said, I will audit all of those lab sessions, unless they are sessions that you're having on campus or online during the weekend or during like your office hours. That as we get deeper into the semester, where that becomes more of an imperative on the part of the students to actually review with you their structural system, their HVAC system, and so on and so forth. So I will try to try to be sensitive to your own personal sort of schedule. Knowing about Thursday is very helpful.
I'll post one of the better times to try to meet me on campus. If you do want to meet me on campus to go over any topics at that point too.
Perfect. Okay. So I think we're at a pause point. This is a perfectly timed evening. Professor Farrow came in right at 8 o'clock. It's closing in on 9 o'clock. I want to give you all a chance to sort of exhale, ask any questions, and to do that in a sort of a public way. And if there are none, but you still have a question and you want to ask it in a sort of a private one-on-one way, I can stick around for a few minutes before I close out this session and be available to answer any of those questions. There's a lot to take in. I tried to do my best to upload, and I know Professor Farrow did as well, upload all of the sort of course material as soon as we could. I hope that you're looking at that stuff now, that you actually maybe spend a little bit of time over the weekend looking at this. And now that you've heard us talk about it, now that you understand the bigger picture and understand how it's going to operate, how it implements, it's a little bit clearer right now. But like I said, this is a marathon. Stay healthy, be communicative, and enjoy it. I think this is going to be a terrific semester for all of us.
As we go through the semester, keep in mind that it's a deliberate attempt on my part for the lab to not conflict with due dates that you have for Studio. So while we have a joint effort this time, the other modules that will be coming up, with the exception of the very final presentation, we will be not conflicting with your due dates for Studio. The labs will be moved away from that to avoid that sort of tension that occurs.
Brilliant. Okay. Questions? Comments, anyone? Not hearing any. Okay. Dan, thank you very much. It's good to see you. Happy New Year to you. And I hope you have a good on-ground session. And if anyone wants to visit with me after the rest of your classmates leave, I'm happy to take your questions then. Otherwise, I'll see you on Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will send an invite. Please try to be here at that time as promptly as we can, and we're going to have just sort of a general discussion about this research, and you'll apprise me of who your partners are if you have one, and we'll go from there. Okay, everyone?
I should be on email probably till 10:30 tonight, and I will be on email tomorrow morning for anyone that has communications with questions on email.
Hey, thanks, Dan. See you all later. And Nora, I'll stick back for you, okay?
Mark, I just had a quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
For like when we get into the desk crits and just working on different things, how do we kind of do that? Do we like screen share and we can draw with a mouse?
So yeah, you'll screen share. That's certainly one way to do it. Screen sharing usually munches up a lot of bandwidth. So, but it works. I don't know if it's going to work effectively with so many people in the class. I'm still sort of trying to suss that out. But what I typically have done is encouraged you guys to send a PDF of like the things that you want to go over that night in a desk crit, and I can talk about it right then on the fly. I can mark it up and take a photograph of it and email it back immediately. We kind of exchange ideas sort of that way. But generally speaking, the desk crit will be, again, with your team member, your partner in the design project, and it will be a kind of a dialogue, a conversation, right, about your design work as it's evolving. And I think that's actually the part of this studio that's really quite fun, because it won't be unfamiliar to you. It'll be very familiar. It'll just be unusual because you may not see people sitting at the desk, next to you like you do on campus. So, but we do a good job, I think, of exchanging ideas and offering our insights as the project evolves through these desk crits.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, I think so.
Super. Anyone else? Okay. Good night, everyone. Nora, I'll talk with you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I'll wait till
I
everyone-
actually have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Trevor and I were just talking about research topics.
Yes.
And we've got the matrix set out. Do you want us to work on just one of these things, or work on the lab portion one for the?
So no, there's 16 students.
Yes.
In the class, enrolled in the class. There's the need for 16 students to fill in all of those categories, right?
Mm-hmm. All right. I was just double check. Perfect.
Good ask.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, Nora in El Paso.
Hi, I was wanting to ask you. I work. The time zone in El Paso is 3 o'clock, 3:30 when you start your class at 5:30. So it might conflict a little bit.
2 hours behind? I thought it was only
2
1.
hours.
I
No,
thought
it's your class started at 3:30. I don't get out of work till 5. I'm trying to work something out.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's gonna go. I spoke to my boss, so I'm not quite sure. We're gonna see what HR can tell us, and I don't know at this point where it might lead. So
okay.
today I logged in and I managed to kind of get you guys, but I don't know what Thursday will be like for me.
You are correct. It is 2 hours behind. I'm looking at you right now. So let me say this. I never know where you all are coming from, like what part of the world. I referenced my student 4 hours behind in Anchorage. I maybe referenced Alfred in Hong Kong, who was 13 hours behind, actually ahead. So the time zone, honestly, Nora, has never been a problem before. So maybe take stock of that. But it's also required some finessing on the part of the student to make the time zone work for them. To put it in sort of the perspective from my perspective, Lawrence Tech's program is really special because it allows people like you and me to work during the day and garner an education, if you will, in the evening, right? It allows people like me who do what you do during the day to come in and join you at night and share our experiences and share our perspectives on architecture in a class like this. It assumes, right, that we're all in Southfield, Michigan, which we're not. It assumes that we're all on the same time zone, which clearly you're not. And they don't give me the playbook, right, the rule book for how to deal with you. So what I am suggesting to you is that you work towards some sort of understanding where you maybe make up the hours that you're missing by being in class with us, by coming in earlier or working a little bit on the weekends, in order for you not to put your own position in the office or wherever you work in jeopardy. I would hate for your work to be compromised by your schooling, but I don't know how much more flexible I can be, because the content and the course and the nature of our studio really does not accommodate kind of someone coming in at 2 hours later, because I can't stay 2 hours past 10:30 to, at Eastern time.
I totally understand.
To work with you.
I addressed that to my supervisor, and he said that he was going to look into it and kind of get HR involved and see what the possibility would be.
Yes.
Of kind of working and schedule. I don't know what it would be like. So
Yeah.
I just want to let you know ahead of time.
Yeah, I really do appreciate that. This is so interesting to me because I had a student from Renelas. It's south of Houston. It's south of San Antonio. She's right on the. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
She's right on the Mexican border, and I swear to God that she was only 1 hour behind me.
Yeah, and that is true. But El Paso has a different time zone.
Mark?
Yeah.
Some of the Western states switch with daylight savings, some do not.
Well, I knew Indiana
yeah, like Dallas
was that
has a
way.
different time zone. I think Dallas and Houston and San Antonio have the same time zone, but not El Paso.
Oh, that's just wonky. Oh, this is every semester there's a new wrinkle, a new sort of issue where we have to sort of address it or solve it. So what I would suggest is that you maintain that appeal with your supervisor and HR. If you need Professor Farrow or I to be involved in the conversation, I'm happy to do that on your behalf. But this is definitely new for me. It worked for Ryan in Anchorage. He literally left at 2:30 and did the studios with us, and I think he actually went back to work afterwards. I don't know how that happened for him, but it is possible. But it does require some flexibility on the part of your employer.
Yes, and I work for a university, so the time is
right. You would think.
I work for Texas Tech Health Science. Yeah, but.
So wait, you're in Lubbock? Are you in Lubbock or El Paso?
No, we Texas Tech Health Science Center was a satellite system in El Paso, and being that we're off in the border, we were able to grow rapidly, and we actually have a medical science, a medical school, a nursing school. And we're bringing a dental school, so it's getting pretty big, and we have our own clinics running, we have our own staff, and we have our own school. So we're doing three things.
Okay, so I just looked you up. You're near Las Cruces. You're way over. You're at.
Oh, Las Cruces is still an hour away from El Paso.
Oh my gosh.
Can you send Professor Farlow and I an email, maybe with your supervisor and HR person representatives indicated?
Right.
Sure, I'll go ahead and address that tomorrow. And I mentioned it to him today, so hopefully we can get something tomorrow, and I'll go ahead and send you both an email.
Thank you.
Super. You actually live near my bucket list city, Miss Nora. I'm dying to go to Marfa.
Where? Marfa. No, Marfa's still far from me.
Oh, I know, but I mean, you're probably the only airport, Midland or Odessa.
Oh, Odessa's still far. Odessa's 4 hours away.
Gosh.
I'm in like the boonies.
Oh my goodness.
The closest is Las Cruces, and it's an hour away.
Wow.
Why is he laughing? Because I said the boonies.
Yeah, it's just Texas is a big place, that's for sure, isn't it? Okay, good. So, well, we have to solve this for you. If there's anything Professor Farrow and I can do to help to sort of legitimize the conversation and give it some sort of academic gravity in terms of, when the class works or starts and how it operates, given that we're in the Eastern time zone, we're happy to sort of do that for you. But I think it's going to require some patience and flexibility on your part. And to the extent that we can be flexible, we will. But there's just so much at stake in a class like this, right?
I totally understand.
You've probably garnered that already.
So I'll just keep you posted, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know how this goes.
Thank you, Nora. I'll look forward to hearing how that happens. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Roger and
Bye-bye.
Hung,
Have a good night.
did you have any questions, gentlemen?
Actually, no, yes. So I was looking for the group project, research project background for your 6 research projects.
Yeah.
And so my partner said he can find them on module 1, but I can't.
Yeah, it's under the course document because the lab one is under the assignment.
That's correct. They're under different settings.
So if you go back to Blackboard, like on the syllabus course document assignment, it's in the course document.
I'm looking at it.
There's like 5 document in there right now. It's the last one.
You said it's the last one?
Yeah, it said module 1 research themes assignment.
Yeah, I've seen that one, but I was asking whether there's one that's like the one from Professor Daniel that has some references.
I think that's
more
all,
detailed.
I think
that's all.
we have. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, then yeah. I mean, then yeah, I've seen that. I mean, my question was whether there was something that was more detailed, like the one from Daniel. But in that case, yeah, it's okay.
There's actually another one. It's on the drive, but I can send it to you.
Okay. Oh, it's in the drive?
Yeah, it's in the drive.
Okay.
It's also under the module 1 research themes.
I looked inside of that too. Module.
It wasn't
research
created
themes.
by Professor Farlow. It was created by Michael Mosley.
Yeah, so he was the original. He created the file like Richard did for some other things tonight, for example.
Oh, well, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at that folder right now, and I can share my screen actually. If that works. So, are you guys seeing my screen right now?
I'm seeing Hung right now. On
Yeah, well,
your
that's
screen.
my screen. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I see.
this is what I'm looking at.
Yep.
Okay.
So I created all of those folders.
Okay.
I added the MRUB design document from Canada and the program brief. So I've added all of those things. And in everything from like 007 up, including the Brush Park M. Farlow folder, they should have things in it that I felt was useful for you guys.
Oh yeah, I looked at those.
Okay. So what was your question, Fajer?
My question was just whether there was something as detailed, well, not as detailed, but that had references included under our research topic. But
what is your research topic?
Site model. But in that case, like he already provided us with all of the documents, like the Rhino files and everything.
Yeah.
I guess that's our equivalent, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yep. Again, like I was saying before, before we got too deep into the conversation with Professor Farrow at 8 o'clock, I said I wasn't sure what the exact site software and files were. I would let you guys suss that out, and if there's anything you needed from me, I would have a way to go back and get more if I could. But but I would start with what you see there, and if it's something that you can use, feel free to use it. If you can't use it, you may have to start from scratch, like Michael and his site team did last fall.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Sure. Hung, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I just have one thing to tell you. I'll be moving. I have to go back to Vietnam a week before spring break to renew my visa. I'll be back before spring break ends. So I probably won't be missing class since I can still go on Google Hangout. It just
you could do Google Hangouts from there.
Yeah. So,
Right.
but I'm just letting you know if somehow a problem happens. I wasn't in.
Right.
in
I
that.
appreciate the heads up. So what I would request, however, is that you send an email to both Professor Farrow and me, articulating what you just said in writing, and give us the bracket of dates, and we can go from there. But we'll need that. We'll need that in writing. Okay.
Right. Okay. No problem.
Excellent. Thanks, Hong. Thanks, Nadra. Thanks, Daniel. You all have a good night.
All right. Night.
Bye-bye.
Okay.